Welcome to the Take Your Power Back show with peak performance breakthrough coach Kim Yeater. Today's empowering program will encourage you to step into your power, to take action in your leadership, and allow your voice to be heard. Listen in today as we speak to other freedom-loving Americans that are making a positive impact in the world by standing in truth amid adversity. Learn how to take your power back in your freedom, in your personal and professional life, in technology and creativity, and in your faith. Be inspired. Be encouraged. Be transformed. Together, let's take your power back with our host, Peak Performance Breakthrough Coach, Kim Yeater.
Well, hello and good evening, my freedom-loving patriots and Californians. Welcome to the Take Your Power Back show, where we, the people, rise up as one to reclaim our golden state and restore power where it belongs to you, we, the people. California, once a shining beacon of opportunity, innovation, and liberty, stands at a crossroads. Under Gavin Newsom his leadership, we've faced soaring taxes, fleeing businesses, spiraling homelessness, and policies that erode our fundamental rights. From sanctuary states to laws that go against the Constitution, to questionable social policies and unconstitutional overreaches, our state has drifted far from the principles of the California Constitution, the United States of America Constitution, and the sacred oath to serve the people. But we are not defeated. We are awake. We are united. We're not a party that is divided, or we will not allow ourselves to be divided. But by our love for California and our fierce commitment to its future, we get to shine the light tonight. And we are spotlighting three bold Republican candidates for governor: Ryan Tillman, Sharifa Hardie, Kyle Langford, who pledged to hold our Constitution, honor their oath, and return power to we the people, not big government. We'll ask them the tough questions, the questions that you, the people, are wanting to be asked. What are those questions? What are you willing to compromise to move California forward? And what principles will you never surrender? As 1 Chronicles 7:14 in God's words reminds us, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray, seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, forgive their sins, and heal their land. California needs healing right now. This is our moment to restore faith. Unite as one California, we the people, and take our state back. It's time. Ignite your courage, grab your patriotic fire, and let's get started. Let's meet the leaders who fight for us and dive into the questions that you want answered. This is the Take Your Power Back California Governor Face-Off Round 4. Our first candidate is a man of action, a law enforcement officer and a community advocate who founded Breaking Barriers, united to bridge divides and build trust. Ryan Tillman is running to restore safety, accountability, and faith in California's future. Let's get to the heart of this vision, starting his campaign. And let's do that by sharing his campaign video. Ryan Tillman, here we go.
They said the best days of California are behind us. They said the system's too big to change, too broken to fix, too corrupt to care. We've watched our economy sink, watched families pack up and leave. We've watched crime rise and trust fall. We've been told what to believe, how to raise our kids, who to trust, and who to fear. But I've seen another side of California. The side that's still fighting, still believing, and still worth saving. They say California's too far gone, too divided, too broken. They say the system can't be fixed, but they forgot. I've never been a part of their system. I'm not a politician, I'm a servant leader. I've led from classrooms to crisis scenes, not from behind a podium, but shoulder to shoulder with the people. I've been the man showing up at 3 a.m. when no one else would, the one dancing at those pep rallies because the kids needed hope, the one holding the line when our communities needed peace. I've never needed a title to lead, but I've seen what happens when leadership disappears. Our economy is strangled by red tape. Families are choosing other states over their home state. Hard work has been punished, and opportunity has been priced out. It doesn't have to be this way. We can cut the cost of living, support small businesses, and get California working again. By getting government out of the way, we can restore safety, not through politics, but through trust. I've worn the badge. I've walked both sides. We can support good officers, hold the wrong ones accountable, and make every neighborhood feel safe again.
We are buffering. You got to love that, guys. We are hard lined in as an FYI. We're going to stop that share right now. We're going to pause that on this end. Stand by. I want to keep that. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring Kyle into the room. Now we've had this happen before. We're hard lined in. So this should not be happening where we're getting hit. Sometimes it happens, but that just opens up the door. We want to hear it right from the horse's mouth. Ryan Tillman, welcome to the Take Your Power Back show. Oh, Ryan, I am not hearing you on your side. Let's get you unmuted.
There we go. There we go.
Oh,
You would think that I know this by now, but Kim, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. I've been looking forward to this on the calendar for a while. So thank you. And, let's get this going.
I love it. Well, first of all, it's an absolute honor to have you here. And I'm just inspired. I'm inspired by you. I can see the discipline of the athlete in you when you're showing up at 3 o'clock in the morning because nobody else will. That says a lot. So I'm excited for our audience to get to know you. Now, Ryan, you've sworn oaths as a police officer to protect and serve. And the California Constitution demands that every elected official uphold an oath to defend both the state and the United States Constitution. In a state where trust in government is eroded, how will you, Ryan, honor the oath to ensure the Constitution is not just a document, but a living promise to the people?
Well, that's a great question. And first and foremost, I attribute a lot of my success, a lot of my experience to my faith in Christ, number one. But number two, we have to get back to putting people first. I think when you allow business owners, your big donors, to control your decision-making through their donations, that's where people start going south. And I think that's why we need something new here in California. That's why we need something different. And as a police officer, from day one, when I was sworn in to protect and serve, they always make sure that, we put the people first. We put their needs before our needs, not only just from the regular call for service that might be a report for something stolen at the local store, but all the way up into potentially having to sacrifice your own life so somebody else might live. And every single day I walked out of the house, my own home, I always walked out with that reality in mind that, doing something like that, I made there was a potential sacrifice where I may not return to my own wife and kids because I decided to put somebody else first. So as governor, there's nothing that changes with that. I still, obviously I love my family, I love my kids, and they will be there to the very end with me. But I also recognize that in order to get our state back, we also have to start putting the people that live in this great state first. And by doing that, I believe that we can see some phenomenal changes and we can see a new state of California.
Very good. Very good. Now, your work with Breaking Barriers United shows your commitment to protecting communities. The sacredness of life is a cornerstone of faith, rooted in scriptures like Psalm 139, 13 through 14, which celebrates God's creation of every person. How will you champion policies that protect life at all stages, from the unborn to the vulnerable in our streets, while addressing California's challenges like homelessness and crime, ensuring that every Californian is valued as a child of God?
Well, one of my prayers every single day that I wake up is that God would give me wisdom, just like Solomon. I ask for wisdom because I recognize that leading a state like California, the fourth largest global economy in the world, is not going to be easy. There's going to be people that don't serve the same God that I serve. There's going to be people that don't have the same values or ideations that I have. So I recognize that although my faith is everything to me, I also recognize that as a position and governor, I have to be the governor of all people, all denominations, and all races. And so the only way to preserve, life like that from conception, the only way to value life, no matter who it is or where it is we have to measure it up with common sense. And the reason why I say common sense, I give you an example. As a police officer, one of the things that I did on a regular is I would go on vehicular traffic collisions. And sometimes there were situations where the offender was driving under the influence and they would take the life of a woman who was also pregnant with a child. And once that investigation was over and that was forwarded to the court for the courts to handle, they wouldn't just charge one count of murder, they would charge 2 counts of murder. Why? Because they acknowledged that the fetus was a life. So if we have that same applicable knowledge applied to our laws, and why don't we attach that same philosophy towards, life when it comes to, Planned Parenthood? So I truly believe that life starts at conception. But we also, what we've done as a state is we've operated from a place of reaction instead of being proactive, where we have gotten away from teaching our kids the dangers of having premarital sex. We've gotten away from teaching our kids the dangers of what happens when you have kids out of wedlock. So we have to go back to teaching kids the fundamental principles of what it truly means to engage in intercourse like that. But then we also have to create other pathways to keeping our children safe, who from parents who may not want or may feel like they're not ready. And so there are so many different states that are currently have other options available, like turning the children over to the local fire station. So that way a foster mom or foster parent can have the opportunity to adopt a child. I have a lot of friends of mine who they've been struggling to have kids. And so there were so many people that would love to take in a child who may not be able to be welcomed into the home that they were biologically conceived with. So I think by creating programs like that, that's now reacting from a proactive state of mind as opposed to a reactive state of mind.
I got that. I love that. I love your example of being on the offense, not constantly on the defense. You being an athlete, you speak from that perspective. I was a college basketball player and a kickboxer, and I'll tell you, I had an incredible defensive game. I was the box out machine. I could rebound, but my coach came to me and he said, "Kim, where are we going to go and how are we going to win the game when we're just focused on defense? You need to get on the offense. You need to shoot those baskets," right? And that was such a pivotal time for me. My game shifted. And I think that you hit the nail on the head today, because I think that this is how the game of life and keeping life sacred is going to shift. So thank you for that.
Of course.
Now, you are running as a Republican in a state that hasn't elected a Republican governor since 2006. Can you share from your background a pivotal moment, personal, professional moment from your past that convinced you to take on this uphill battle? And how does it shape your vision for a constitutional California?
So I'm probably going to give you the first curveball that you were probably not expecting of the night.
Uh-oh. All right, bring it.
No, I'm not running as a Democrat, but I actually am running as an independent. And And here's why. And I'm very conservative in values, but I built a whole organization, a whole brand called Breaking Barriers United with the sole purpose of bridging the gap between law enforcement and the community. When I first became a police officer, I despised law enforcement. I couldn't stand police officers. And then when I became a police officer, I saw it from a different perspective. I got to understand the what, the why, and the how. And that's what allowed me to go out into the community and start bridging that gap. But I remember early on saying that if I went into an inner city neighborhood wearing a thin blue line shirt, the moment I walk in that neighborhood, no matter what I say, no matter what comes out of my mouth, that neighborhood is going to be turned off to me because that thin blue line represents something different to them than what it means to me. And I think what's happened in our current state of affairs, not only here in the state of California, but on a national scale, is we have put our politics on the pedestal. We have made the political parties that we serve the idol. And what's happened is we've now gotten away from actually putting people first and actually getting behind somebody with real issues. And so although I'm very conservative in my values, although I'm very conservative in my nature, I believe for me, the best way to unify California is from an independent state of mind, which to me means that I'm at a place where I can meet people in the middle. And by doing that, it allows me to reach across the aisle and talk to Democrats. It allows me to talk to other independents, but it also allows me to connect with Republicans. And if we truly want to better our state, if we truly want to go into a different direction and stop operating from a place of insanity, we have to be willing to sit across the aisle and talk to our foes and be able to come to places where we can agree to disagree. And so I know I just probably threw you for a curveball with that, but I truly believe that by doing this, it's going to allow me to focus on grassroots efforts. Grassroots, I believe, is the future of politics. It allows me to focus on getting the buy-in from the people as opposed to the buy-in from 4 or 5 different large businesses or parties that are going to give me bulk of my money to run a campaign. So yes, it is an uphill battle, whether it's an independent or a Republican, because the state is dominated by Democrats. But if you have the right person, the right message, and the right heart, I believe that we can make history here in California.
I got that. I got that. It's funny because when I asked you the question, you said I'm not running as a Democrat, and that would mean you're not running as a Republican either. So I am quite surprised that you're running as an independent. So let me ask you this. It sounds like you feel like you're going to have the same running chance as a Democrat or a Republican. Is that so?
I truly believe so. Currently, the state of our field in California right now, and these numbers that I'm going to give to you aren't completely accurate. But right now, it's looking like 22% of our state is currently made up of independents. 24% of our state is made up of Republicans, and you have another 50-ish to 60% made up of Democrats.
Yeah.
And I always tell people what they also fail to realize is that there's a whole other class that everybody looks over, and that's the people that aren't voters. That's also the younger generation and the people that just care less about politics. So if I can turn out new voters, if I can get into the minds and start educating people about what politics truly is, if I can start going after people that say, hey, look, I feel like politics has let me down, and I can educate them as to why they need to be involved in politics, I believe we change the field. And so, if I was running as a Republican, let's just say I got every single Republican vote, we would still lose the election in a landslide. We have to stop looking at this from a very small view, and we have to look at a granular view and say, hey, look, this is what it looks like if we want to be strategic in this. We have to play chess, not checkers. And I think the way to do that is by trying to meet in the middle and trying to be all things to all people without compromising who I am.
That's a great scripture, to be all things to all men. I hear you. Excellent.
Apostle
Fantastic.
Paul right there.
Come on. All right. With Newsom's policies, like his defiance of federal authority and his handling of protest in Los Angeles, how will you, Ryan, restore the rule of law while uniting Californians across all the divides, putting God and the people first?
Well, my number 2 priority as governor is to bring back the power to our police officers. And the way you do that is by being tough on crime and smart on redemption. I think we've come to a place where we don't believe we can do both at the same time. We feel like you either have to be tough on crime or not tough on crime at all. And I don't know where we got to believing that. When I first became a new officer, they had passed Prop 47, which was passed as the Safe Schools Act, and they completely did a rug pull underneath us, and it was everything but that. And so what we have to do is we have to give the power back to our law enforcement leaders. We have to allow them to go out there, enforce the law, courteously and appropriate, obviously, but enforce the law without fear of, coming back with some political pandering or political pressures. And by doing that, you're going to not only restore the faith of the leaders, but you're also going to restore the faith of the local law enforcement officials that are out there enforcing these laws. But then the other side of that coin is the redemption side of it. I have a lot of friends of mine who have formerly been incarcerated, from anywhere from a life sentence to only serving 1 to 2 years. And I saw that they were able to change and transform their life. But I recognize that there's a lot of flaws within the system currently as it stays. So that being said, is we have to create opportunities for people that want to change it, want to turn it all around. I believe we use the phrase rehabilitation. We just use it as a catchphrase now, but we have to redefine what that truly means. And I use the word redemption because, especially if we're talking about our faith here, there are so many examples within the Bible of people that were horrendous men. If you look at the Apostle Paul, before he was Paul, he was Saul. And so if God can have grace and compassion for those men who've written some of the most, inspirational books of the New Testament, why can't we do the same with our people? But it's going to take a strategy. It's going to take a system. And I believe I've developed some of those strategies that can improve California. So that way people will think twice about committing a crime, but then they'll also be, able to go out there and be contributing members to society once they're ready.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, as a conservative candidate, you've likely held leadership roles or made public statements in the past. Are there any previous positions, affiliations, or social media posts that your career or personal life that might surprise voters or conflict with your current platform? And if so, how would you address them?
I would say I've tried to live a life above reproach. Am I perfect? By no means am I perfect. And so if you have somebody that goes back and tries to look at things that might hurt me, I've done so many different things in my life where I'm actually don't have any regrets. I remember a time specifically when I was, there was a situation when an officer was killed in New York. And, there was some random lady out there that was upset because there was a huge, law enforcement procession line, and she was saying, I have to get to work. And so I made a post, and on that post about her, I basically put what she said, and then I put a clown face over her. And even though I was upset, I was truly upset that she could care less, even though this officer was murdered. I had some of my followers say, hey, Ryan, I totally understand where you're coming from, but man, you are somebody that bridges gaps and bridges divides, and this just isn't you. And so I went down and I took that post down, not because I was wrong, but because I wanted to be above reproach. The other thing that I could think of right away is, when they had the BLM movement, there was a lot of controversy about people that would take knees. And, I would be remiss to say that, I didn't kneel with the protesters, but my kneeling was different. And I tell people this, and this is actually online. And I want to say it here now. If you read my book called Happy Eyes, I actually talk about why I knelt. At the time when this was all going down, I said, I'm not kneeling at all. I'm not kneeling for any man. I'm not kneeling because everything that's going on in society is completely, they're trying to make law enforcement look terrible. They're trying to make us look bad. They're trying to paint us in a bad light. And I will be remiss if I kneel to that. But then in my quiet time, spending time with God and spending time with trying to get wisdom, like I said earlier, one of the things that God revealed to me was this. He said, you know what? When Jesus was getting ready to go die, what did he do? He got down on a knee and he washed the feet of the disciples. When you got ready to propose to your wife, what did you do? And I got down on one knee and I asked my wife to marry me. And why did I get down on a knee? Because it was an outward sign of I'm willing to submit to you and be a servant to you. So then the last thing that the last part of the revelation was this: is as a public servant, as a police officer, what is your job? And the revelation was I'm a servant, despite what people think about me, despite what people do. And at that moment in time, I truly believe that what was going on was a very, very tumultuous time in our community. And so I wanted to outwardly show the community that I'm still here willing to serve you, whether you agree with it or not. So my reason for kneeling was not because I was caving to any political pressures. It was more so to show people that I'm there to serve with you, whether you like me or not. And so there might be people that say, oh, well, I can't get along with that. And that's understandable. But my reason was grounded in something that was much bigger than just the process itself. But as a whole, I've done a good job of living a life above reproach. And it would be very, very difficult to find something that I would try to backtrack on now.
Thank you for your authenticity. So let me ask you, we've all seen the videos and heard the stories and the interviews with Sheriff Chad Bianco taking a knee to BLM. What is your thoughts on that?
I think my thoughts, and I would say, Sheriff Bianco is a friend of mine. He supported me throughout the years. And so, but when it comes down to that, I would say that, you know what, sometimes we just have to acknowledge, and we have to just acknowledge and acknowledge what we do and why we do it. Nobody's perfect. And the moment we start to begin to think that we're perfect or we're not going to make mistakes along the way, then that's when we start getting ourselves into problems. So if his intention was to truly kneel with protesters, I think that, a lot of people would show grace and compassion more than he realizes. And so, I don't know if it's, I've seen some of his statements on it, and he says that he was just getting down to pray. And whether or not I believe that that's the truth or not, I don't know. Only he knows that. But I would say, just stand for whatever you believe in, whether you believe it or not. And one of the things that, I've had to realize over the course of my life, especially my professional life, is that you're never going to please everybody. You're never going to please everybody. But I think one thing people respect about any person is the fact that they're willing to take ownership of whatever they do. And I think what we've seen with politicians lately is that they're not willing to either acknowledge mistakes, or they're not willing to say that they do make mistakes. And so I'm not saying that Chad has made a mistake. I think all I would say is that just stand on whatever you believe in, stand in whatever your convictions are, and go forth boldly. And as long as you're right with God, then you can't be mad if you might not be right in the eyes of some of the men.
Come on. One of my favorite quotes is, you stand for something or you'll fall for anything.
Correct.
So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Let's traverse for a second. Let's move over to election integrity. Okay. And is there real integrity in elections right now? So as a police officer, you have seen the importance of trust in systems. California's election processes have been scrutinized with concerns about mail-in ballots, voter roll accuracy. How will you ensure our elections are transparent and secure, restoring confidence in we the people that their vote is actually counting? And then what specific reforms would you push to uphold the integrity of the process while honoring the California Constitution?
First and foremost, you're absolutely right. Election integrity should be held at one of the most top priorities of any government official, whoever gets into that role. Hopefully me, prayfully me. But the first thing you have to do is, anytime you want to, have some type of reform like you're mentioning, you have to first start with education. Why? Because if people aren't educated about the what, the why, and the how of how a system operates, then they don't know what the right solution is. And I learned this firsthand as a police officer. When I got into law enforcement, I did not like police officers. I couldn't stand police officers. But as I became a police officer, like I mentioned earlier, I got to understand the what, the why, and the how, and it changed my perspective completely. So that started me off on a mission to bridge that gap. And the way I did that was by educating people about what officers do, why we do it, and how we do it. So how does that relate to election integrity? First and foremost, we have to educate our Californians on what or how the election process goes. What goes into it? What goes into at the actual facilities, the ballot facilities, what goes into mail-in ballots, and what goes into electronic voting. By educating them, now they start to see, okay, well, how can we be more efficient in this? And then when they start asking the how can we be more efficient? That's incumbent upon me now to go out there and find technology or new systems that can make us more efficient. So that way it keeps us honest. As a 38-year-old man, I'm still connected to my millennial side, but I'm also connected to the Generation Z side of things. And I truly know that there are systems now in 2025 that exist that can help us be more integrous with our process. So, there's certain technologies out there like smart contracts or, digital currencies or cryptocurrencies. How does that all tie in? Well, I believe if we research and go find the right tech companies, they will now allow us, or they will be able to help us create systems that keep everybody honest to how we vote, to make sure that it's accurate and that there is no more cheating. There's no denying that there's been cheating in the past elections. And if anybody that wants to deny that, they would be remiss and be living in a world of ignorance. So we have to acknowledge that, hey, it does exist. So how do we become more systematic and more, what do you call it? What's the word for it? More simplistic with our process. And I believe that by looking into resources of technology, I think we're going to be able to streamline that process.
Okay, I got that. Election integrity is key for our votes to be heard. Fantastic. We're going to go back for a second, not really back, it's a little bit forward. But in your past roles of public engagements, have you ever supported or opposed policies that now maybe you view a little bit differently, such as immigration, education, or parental rights? And how has your perspective evolved, and why should voters trust this growth?
I think the only evolution of my political stances has come from when I was a child till now. And what I mean by that is when I grew up, I grew up in a Democratic home. And so my views were completely different. But what started to change my political views was getting a job in law enforcement. I became more conservative because I saw that the laws that were being passed on a higher level, I saw the byproduct of that on the streets enforcing the law. Some of the other things that have changed my political stances have been becoming a business owner. I saw a lot of the red tape. I saw how much it is when we have to pay taxes. So that's changed where I am politically. But then what's also changed me politically is being the father of three young children. I have an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old.
Wow.
And when I started realizing that we didn't have as much power as I thought we did, it truly did shift my political viewpoint and vantage point. So where do I stand now as it relates to some of those topics? Well, number one, I truly believe that parents should have power over their kids' education, not only just from the curriculum that they're learning, making sure that we take politics and some of the cultural stuff out of learning. Now, I'm not saying all cultural stuff. I think there are some good things in the past. Like I remember when I was in high school watching the movie Roots to see where our nation has evolved from. But I'm talking about modern day cultural agendas that are being pushed on our kids. We have to remove that. But then we also shouldn't be mandating a lot of our kids to be vaccinated. You know, I believe in medication. I believe in medicine. And I think medicine is phenomenal. But when you start forcing these things on people that don't want to do it, I believe we start infringing on people's constitutional rights. And so for a child to have to get a certain amount of shots in order to go to a public school, I don't believe is right. That should be a choice of a parent. So that's where I stand as it relates to our education. But then as it relates to some of our quality of life issues, like I said, we have to be firm and tough on crime. We could believe in redemption. And then we also, the last thing is talking about our economy is we have to find better ways of giving people government assistance. The government should not be the end all be all. We have to teach people to go out there and fish for themselves as opposed to giving them a fish and they're going to be coming back tomorrow for another fish.
Excellent. Well, let's talk a little bit more about immigration. We didn't really get to touch on that from that question, but what are your viewpoints on immigration? What's your viewpoints right now in the state of California with a law enforcement working separately from ICE? Just kind of the breakdown there.
That's a great question. I believe that two things could be true at the same time as it relates to immigration. I believe that is absolutely true and necessary that we have safe and secure borders, not only here in the state of California, but in the United States of America. Anybody that believes that we should have open borders, go and live in some of these other countries that have other borders, open borders, and tell me that you still want to have open borders. And so I believe that that is absolutely true. But I also believe it's true that we can deport people and do it in a way that's compassionate and with mercy and also transparency. The transparency part of it is this. Right now, I've spoken to people that work with ICE. I've spoken to people who are undocumented, and I've spoken to everybody in between, the officers who have been out there trying to keep the people at bay. And one of the common themes that I continue to see is that there is a failed approach to working with one another. Right now, we have a president coming after our governor and a governor going after our president, and all of us are getting caught in the crossfire. So what we have to do is we have to learn to start working together. We have to allow federal ICE, the ICE immigration, to start working with our local and state law enforcement leaders and officials. One of the things that I learned as I started to study about the sanctuary cities and sanctuary states is that we've had a lot of unintended consequences. When sanctuary laws were first put in place, the idea is that by passing some of these sanctuary laws, it will allow people to go report things to local law enforcement without fear of being deported. And so on the surface, it sounds like a great idea. But the unintended consequence of that is now your state and local law enforcement agencies don't work with federal ICE. So, for example, let's say you have a violent felon that goes out there, commits a crime, and he's now being housed at your local county jail. Well, instead of ICE being able to come and interview this person because they're on their wanted list, the county jail is going to kick them back out in the streets. And now you have ICE going into graduations, going into parties and things like that to pick this person up. So if we started working together in partnership and saying, here's a clear objective, and this is what we want to do, and this is how we're going to get there, I think we'll start to see an ease of the political chaos that's going on. Right now, there's no clear direction. You have some ICE offices saying, hey, we're just going to go after anybody who's an illegal immigrant. And you have other ICE offices saying, hey, we just want to go after violent people that don't deserve to be here. There needs to be order and direction. And like you brought up earlier, the athlete in me, there was always a goal and objective that we wanted to accomplish. But when the goal and objective is not clear and concise, then people start running on their own program. And I think that's what's going on here in California.
Well said. Very good. Very good. Let's talk about human trafficking. It's right there with open borders and illegal immigration. So human trafficking. California is a major hub for human trafficking, with ports and highways exploited by cartels. Given your law enforcement background, what concrete strategies will you implement to combat this evil, to protect the children, and support survivors?
We have to realize that in this world, we not only wrestle against flesh and blood, but spirits and principalities. And because of that, it means we are dealing with some very, very evil and dangerous people. Any person that wants to traffic a child, a woman, and utilize them for slavery, whatever it may be, that's barbaric. And so with that, that means that we also have to have a very, very tough response to anybody that wants to violate another person in that manner. So as it relates to human trafficking, as a governor, I'm going to, push forth with new initiatives to make sure that we are strong on that front, that make sure that we cause people to think twice if they want to engage in such acts of just barbaric, things that you can think of. So one of my strategies would be, number one, is creating new policies and helping, Democrats and Republicans create new legislation to make their laws more stricter to anybody that wants to traffic. And then also making sure that we send a clear message to our borders, people in Mexico, anybody that's operating within the cartels. If you want to do that here in California or in the United States of America, it will not be tolerated. We will send a message, and we will make sure that anybody that wants to engage in this activity might think twice the next time when they see what happens to the person that gets caught.
Good. And how will you work with the communities and the faith-based organizations to raise awareness and stop the trafficking in the state?
So we're going to have to make sure that we invest into the information and into the education of our community as it relates to human trafficking. I had the opportunity of speaking at a wellness conference last week at Disneyland for San Bernardino County Office of Education. And there I actually came across a booth that was about human trafficking. And the information that they were giving me and providing me was phenomenal. A lot of things that I never even realized. But it also made me realize is that how many other people are like me and don't even understand what's going on right underneath their nose. So we have to make sure that we invest in the programs, that we can educate people on the tips or the signs to look for to know if somebody's being trafficked. Give them, defensive tactics to respond or get away or get out of a situation where somebody may be attempting to be trafficked. So I think by investing into those programs and making sure that there's oversight of those programs, and I say oversight because what we don't need in California is just another organization that alleges they're going to provide a program, and then we have another $22 billion that goes about nobody knows anything about. So yes, I like programs, but making sure that the programs are efficient and making sure that they're accomplishing the goals that they set out. I mean, that's how we kind of got in the mess as it relates to homelessness, where we start spending so much money, $22 billion on homelessness, but yet we still have 30,000 more people that are homeless. So, I love programs. We just got to make sure it's the right programs. And I think we can also end or at least curb human trafficking through educating our public on what's going on.
Good. Very good. Very good. So out of all of the issues that you could focus on in that, being governor of the state of California, what are the top 3 that are most important to you?
So if this election was about Ryan Tillman, then public safety would be my number 1 issue. Why? Because I can do public safety with my eyes closed. I've worked in law enforcement for the last 13 years of my life. I understand it inside out. But I recognize that this election is not about Ryan Tillman. It's about the people of California. So my number 1 issue is focusing on the economy and trying to repair that. Right now, California, although we are the 4th largest global economy in the world, one of the things that is negated is the fact that we're also heavily in debt, as well as unrealized debt, with a lot of our state retirements that haven't even realized yet. So we have to figure out, how do we bring back balance to our economy? How do we create new revenue streams within the state of California? How do we bring back the businesses and the people that have fled from California? And then how do we really stimulate the economy by utilizing new technologies and also maybe investing into new cryptocurrencies? It sounds crazy. Some people, may say, man, this guy is a tinfoil guy because I'm talking about cryptocurrencies. But if you really actually start to understand the actual use case of what they do and why they're valuable, I think there's a lot of different ways that we can generate new revenues within the state of California. So number one is we have to fix the economy, bring down the gas prices, bring down the groceries, and create affordable housing. And when I say affordable housing, I'm not talking about affordable housing in the Palisades. I'm talking about affordable housing for the people that are coming out of college, want to buy their first house and have an ability to do so. So that's number one. Number two, I want to make sure that we are tough on crime, but also believing in the redemption and second chances. I already told you how we're going to do it, but that's my number two issue. And my third issue is bringing back the power to the parents over their kids' education. That's the top three priorities that I've focused on. Why? Because if you have those three at the focus of my agenda, it starts to improve quality of life for everyone. Not a Democrat, not a Republican, not an independent, but for everybody. And that's my focus, is improving quality of life of all Californians.
Oh, good. Okay, parents, that's an education. I love that that's important to you. So especially you having 3 kids. I have 4 kids and they've already gone through the school system. I'm a grandma now. Now I'm concerned about the
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's amazing. I have 1 and 1 more on the way. I feel like I'm having a baby. I'm not.
I can't believe you even have grandkids.
The gray is nicely tucked away. Well, let me ask you, I've had shows all week long in the past couple of weeks about the children and about all of these transgender laws, or what we like to call, grooming laws that are being passed in the state of California. It is taking away the rights of the parents to, when you have a 12-year-old that can go to a center, check themselves into a center and go and get the surgeries that they need without the parents' rights. What are your thoughts on all of that?
First and foremost is we have to be able to separate politics from treating people as people. There was about 6 or 7 months ago, I was speaking at a school, and the school I was speaking at, it was truly divided by the teachers, the staff. You had staff on the far left and staff on the far right. And as I was there, my goal was to help them resolve conflict. And I always teach people, like, the way you resolve conflict is by leading with love, leading with empathy, and leading with respect. And so as I was giving this presentation, I was talking about leading with love first. And then one of the teachers jumped ahead and said, well, we actually have to talk about respect, because I feel like some of these teachers don't respect our kids who are part of the LGBTQ or the transgender population. So you need to talk about respect. And I was like, well, I was actually on my way to getting to respect. But before we get there, let me share something with you. Before we walked into this classroom today, I actually had a discussion with some of the members of the LGBTQ and trans community, some of the students here. And before, not even talking about how they identified, I actually just talked about how I was proud of them for being able to go and stand in front of a class of adults and be able to speak about how they feel and what's important to them. And I talked about how that public speaking is the #1 fear in the world. So for them to come up there and overcome that fear, I was proud of them. And after I told them that, I gave every single one of them a hug. They all smiled and we walked away from each other. So when I told her about that scenario, I said, let me ask you a question now. Do you think that it was more important for me in that moment now to identify them as they, them, or whatever they would like to be identified as? Or do you think it was more important for me to give them a hug and make them feel loved and heard? And so that's the reason I bring that up is because I think that's the same approach that we have to go at this whole topic with. You see, I am a firm believer that there is only 2 genders, male and female. That's just me. That's from a spiritual lens. That's how I view things. But it doesn't negate the fact that there are other people that may think or believe otherwise. And so my goal as a governor is to make sure that we do things with all people in mind, not just one small population. And I think we're in the mess we're in now is because we try to focus on all these small different populations. And what happens now is you open Pandora's box, and now where does it stop? It doesn't stop. So by focusing on everybody and how everybody is like, you know what, you won't be counseled for having the biblical values that you have, or you won't be counseled because you identify as this. I believe we'll make tremendous strides. And so my goal when it comes to talking about parents as it relates to trans and things is to make sure, like I said, we keep a lot of the cultural, political topics out of our schools. We focus on the actual well-being and health and wellness of our kids as opposed to politicizing every topic, and making sure that we give our kids good tactics that they can use on their day-to-day life and teach them how to become more resilient. We need to raise a resilient society, because if we don't, we will fall.
I got that. I got that. Would you say that there is a clear distinction between a man and a woman?
Yes, there is a clear distinction between a man and a woman. Biology tells us that. Science tells us that. As it relates to men and women's sports, I truly believe that men should play men's sports and women should play women's sports. There's always the pushback. Well, I'm a trans man or whatever it may be. The reality is this: is that if you have an unfair advantage over somebody biologically, it's not right. Some might ask, well, how did you come to that conclusion? Well, I came to that conclusion very simply. I'm a father of a young daughter. And as my daughter gets older and as my daughter starts playing sports, I would be very hurt and very upset if somebody was able to beat my daughter because they had biological advances, but not even from the standpoint of winning and losing. I would be very upset if I found out that my daughter got hurt because somebody had more advances or more advantages because of their biological makeup. So I'm not negating the fact that some people feel like they should be able to play in other sports, but we also have to make sure we're keeping our sports safe. And sometimes we have to just resort back to, hey, look, that you have a biological male and a biological female, and it goes from there.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for just breaking that down for us. I think that's our audience needed to hear that. So thank you. All right. So let's traverse over for a second. Feeding our families, providing water for our crops. We have a major water issue in the state of California. So California's farmers are struggling with water restrictions and regulations that threaten their livelihood, impacting food security for millions. How will you, as governor, balance environmental concerns with the needs of our agricultural communities to ensure water access and support the sacred role of farmers who feed our state?
Look, the environment is important. I mean, we have to remember that we are living in God's creation. So it is very important. But what's begun to happen is we've started to prioritize clean energy over natural resources like gas and oil. And a lot of it's become because there was this, the clean energy initiatives that they were passing. And what we realized, what people don't realize is the actual carbon imprint that California leaves on the earth, the carbon imprint that the United States leaves on the earth is very minuscule compared to the rest of the globe. So it doesn't mean that we shouldn't focus on trying to have cleaner energy, but it definitely does say that, hey, look, we can still pull from some of our natural resources. California sits on some of the biggest oil refineries in the world, and we start shutting those down. And what starts happening is our farmers feel the impact of that. So we also have to be able to cut red tape and regulations. I talked to a farmer about 4 months ago, and they were telling me that every year there's always new regulations and new stipulations that's always coming down for their farms. And so not only do they have to make sure that their farm is now within the proper assessments and regulations, but they have to pay for it. So not only are they paying more money for the new regulations, but now they have to make sure every year that they're up to par and up to standard. So by cutting some of the red tape, by making sure that we do start tapping into some of our natural reserves here, and not only opening up some of these refineries, but by doing that, we're also going to create more jobs. So I think you can do both. I believe that we can still look into cleaner energy. I drive, and one of my cars is an electric vehicle, and from an economical standpoint, it's the best thing ever. But it doesn't mean that we should force everybody to go out there and buy electric vehicles. There is a place. God created natural resources for a reason. So let's not just turn a blind eye and say, oh my goodness, they're bad for society. Let's just make sure we do it with balance.
Okay, let's talk electric vehicles for a second. So I find people driving around not being able to find a place to plug in, and it's super difficult. So how on earth can we create a space, what California is calling for, where everything is electrical? Bye-bye gas, bye-bye. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that to me is crazy. What are your thoughts about that? Do you have an issue finding?
Yeah, well, first we just have to stop, almost forcing people to go electric on everything. Again, I like electric. I believe in electric, but it doesn't mean that it's everything. Give
Right.
people a choice. Sometimes I think we have too much government. And when you have too much government, when the government starts saying this is what you need to buy and this is how you need to do it, that's where we start, going down a fine line to destruction. One of the things that makes the United States the one of the best countries in the world is
Mhm.
the reality that we have choices here. You go to other countries, they don't have choice. So one of the things that we have to do first and foremost is we have to stop forcing this huge energy initiative on everybody saying you need to buy an electric car, you need to have solar panels, you need to have this. No, continue to make gas powered vehicles, continue to produce electric vehicles. And by doing that, I think what we'll do is we'll start to restore a little bit of balance to it. So that way you don't see a lot of these, these electric charging stations, full and overpacked because
Right.
everybody now is an electric vehicle. It is funny to me because there are times where I'm like, man, this place is packed. And then the other thing
Right.
that people forget to realize
Mhm.
is that, what happens if the electric grid goes down? So
Exactly. That's the biggest thing that I think of. Like when it all goes down, what are you going to do then?
correct. And so we just got to be
Yeah.
smart about it. And,
Yes.
I hate saying common sense because, you know, it's everybody's using that nowadays, but it really does come back down to common
It's
sense.
common sense. It certainly is. So, if elected, what is one bold action you would take in your first 100 days to return power back to Californians? And how does a specific lesson from a past failure or success convince you this action is the right action?
So the one of the number one things that I would do if elected as governor is we would have to go and start cutting some of the wasteful spending. It is
Mm,
going to be controversial. And the reason I say that it's going to be controversial is because we saw what happened with Doge, and there were a lot of people upset with that. But the
yes.
reason
Mhm.
why this is so important, and let me bring context to this, if we do not fix the state debt crisis, all that continues to happen is we continue to push the can down the road. At some point, we're going to have to pay for it. And so if we really care about our kids, I have 3 kids and I care about the future of our kids, we have to start gaining control of our finances. And I know this firsthand just as a Californian in and of itself. I've lived
Mhm.
a life where we live paycheck to paycheck. And then I've lived a life where we had a lot of money. We were making a lot of money as a business. And then I remember where we start letting things get out of control. And then you had to rebalance and recalibrate. So what we have to do, and one of the number one things I would do is I would start to identify where is a lot of the wasteful spending going. I was on a podcast yesterday and they brought up the bullet train. On paper, the bullet train sounds like an awesome idea. It sounds amazing, but is that the top priority of California where we have other things that really could use our help and use that money? When we have issues like a mental health, when we have issues like substance abuse, when we have issues of homelessness, could we use that money in better ways? So I believe by, taking a snapshot and getting together a really good solid team to say, where can we shave some of the fat? Where can we, lean down? That way, if we fix the money problem, think about how many other issues start to just naturally be fixed.
Mhm.
If you start fixing the money issue, you're going to naturally see instances of domestic violence go down. Why do I bring up domestic violence? So one of the biggest causes of domestic violence is an economic
Yes.
catastrophe in the home. So you'll see issues like that go down. You'll see homelessness go down. You'll see people's joy start to go up, but it's going to come with a little bit of pain at first. That means that we just got to start cutting. Now, I'm not going to start cutting programs that are really beneficial to the people. We can't do that. If there are programs out there that exist that are really helping our kids or helping people, we'll keep those implemented. But we have to go out there and find the areas that is draining our economic stability here in California, and then start there.
Now, Ryan, you are a great team player. You mentioned, the different people you'd work with, right? So, have you begun to pull your team together? If you were to move into that position as governor, have you gathered your teammates?
Oh, every day I'm out there. I was actually just at a meeting today with one of the county supervisors, who is on the other side of the equation. He's a Democratic guy, but he's a moderate. He's a moderate guy. He's very, very good at what he does. I value this guy, not because I've seen how he operates professionally, but I've had a good relationship with him for the last 10 years. So that, I bring that up is because every day I'm out there looking to see who can I pull on people to give me a knowledge or advice of where we need to go. They've always said this, as an athlete, You always have to operate like you've been there before. When you score, sometimes when you see the person score their first touchdown, they go crazy. I remember the first time I ever scored a touchdown, I went crazy. I was dancing in the end zone, spiked the ball. I was all excited. And
I can imagine.
My coach pulled me over on the sideline. He said, "Ryan, you like that?" I said, "Man, that was the best feeling ever." He said, "All right, that's great, but I need you to act like you've been there before." And I didn't understand it at first. But what he was saying is
good advice.
Yeah, he said when you start acting like you've been there before, that's when you start to operate like you belong there. And what that means for me is I have to start operating like I'm a governor now. So when we talk about immigration, you think that Ryan Tillman just came up with all this stuff because I'm just some very, very smart person? Absolutely not. The first thing I did when I started seeing the immigration stuff going on is I started to lean on people in my community that I know are experts with this, from former chiefs to people that work within ICE to people that are working firsthand on the streets to people who are undocumented. So I'm currently out there looking for people in all different aspects. If the economy is not my number one, I need to find somebody who has a track record of making good financial decisions. If public safety is my number two, then I need to go out there and find somebody who's done right by the community, stood up to people when nobody else would, and bring them on board. If education is my number three, find those people. And I already have a lot of those people in my life. And so, do I want to come out there and say, yeah, this is my team right away? No, we have to operate from a place of wisdom and strategy, but I can tell you I'm already looking.
Very good. Wisdom, strategy. Let's talk faith real quick. Faith is central to many of your supporters. Can you share a very specific moment or a struggle in your spiritual journey that shaped your decision to run for governor?
So yes, this is a funny one. At the beginning of the year, me and my wife, we engaged in a fast. Now, we usually fast every year with our church, and typically we do the Daniel's fast, which is just eating foods from the earth and nothing else.
Yes.
But this year we wanted to challenge ourselves, and we did a 5-day no food fast. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to go deeper in our faith with Christ. And so as we did that, the first 2 days were miserable. It was tough. But as I started dying to myself, I started seeing the supernatural strength come up from the Spirit. And that's when God started putting these things on my heart as far as I want to take you to new heights. I want to take you to new levels. Some of the things that were revealed to me is you've been a leader, but I'm going to make you the leader of leaders. And so, one day I woke up, and after I had some prophetic words spoken to my life, God had just put this idea about running for governor on my heart. And the thing I thought about was, it's easy to flee. It's easy to leave, but it's harder to run towards the bullets. But you've been trained your whole life. You became a police officer. You signed up to run towards the bullets. You signed up to run towards the danger. What makes this any different? So I talked about it with my wife. My wife said, yes, let's do it. And then I entered into, I said, I'm going to run for governor. So I threw a couple feelers out here and there. And to my surprise, everybody was like, man, it's not a matter. Like, it doesn't surprise me that you want to run for governor. This is something that shoots you to a T. So I still had a little bit of imposter syndrome, about 3 or 4 months into this, thinking like, man, why me? Why me? And God kept telling me, look, I don't call the qualified, I qualify the called. And one day,
would you just say that one more time?
God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And one day I woke up with this heavy burden, and I was just like, man, like, this is an uphill battle. This literally, the governor's race of California is the second largest political race, second to the president of the United States. And not only is it that difficult, but running as an independent or Republican is also a Mount Everest climb. And so one day the Spirit just told me, hey, I want you to go read about Gideon. So I opened the Bible, I read in Judges, and I'm reading about this guy, Gideon. And I had read about Gideon before, but never done a deep dive like this. And as I was doing a deep dive, I realized how human Gideon was. Gideon was somebody that God had a calling on his life. And God said, I want you to go and fight these armies that have come against your people. And Gideon was some guy that was not qualified. But he did one thing, is he said yes to God. But even though he said yes, he was still fully human and still equally human. And so he asked for signs along the way. He asked for specific signs like, God, tell me that this is what you want me to do. He did that 3 times, and God gave him clear signs every single time that this is what I want you to do. Well, right before Gideon goes into battle, God gives him 1/4 sign because he still recognizes that Gideon is fully human, and he recognizes that he's battling with a little doubt. So Gideon gets the sign, he goes into battle, or before he goes into battle, Gideon gets his army full up to 30,000 people. And Gideon says, God, I'm ready, let's do it. And God says, all right, Gideon, that's great, but I now want you to cut this down to 300 people. And Gideon is like, wait, what? Why 300? And he tells Gideon, he said, because when you win the battle, not if you win the battle, but when you win the battle, I don't want you to get the glory. I want to get the glory. And I will get the glory when you go into battle with 300 soldiers and you come out victorious. And so the revelation I got was this: you have not because you ask not. So I asked God, I said, God, give me a sign. I'm as human as Gideon was. So give me a sign. So I wrote down in my journal that day, and I literally have my journal sitting right next to me, and I have the date on there that I wrote in my journal, and I put it away. I pray, and the next day I go out and I'm doing my business. The very next day, I'm out speaking at a school. And as I'm speaking at a school, I'm like, hey, I do it, do my thing. And I get off the stage and all these kids come up to me and thank me for my time. And it's one kid is saying, man, Ryan, you really resonated with everything I had to say or everything you had to say. And I can understand where you're coming from. And I just really appreciate you. And I said, man, no problem, man. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. I said, if you don't mind me asking, I said, what's your name? And he said, oh, I'm Gideon. I said, no way. I said, this is crazy.
Can't make
his
this
eyes
stuff
got all
up.
wide. He said, I know Gideon's a biblical name. I said, no, I'm not tripping because it's a biblical name. I'm tripping because it's an answer sign from God. So I walked away from that. And mind you, I've never met a Gideon in my life until that moment. But I walked away with this, this new mind or this new thought is I don't know what next year looks like. I don't know what tomorrow looks like. But what I do know is I have the ability to be obedient today. And so as long as I wake up every single day and until that election is over, I'm going to put my best foot forward. I'm going to operate at 100%, make the connections I do. So that way we can try to win our state back and do it with God in mind.
Yes. Come on, Ryan. What a great, great story. I love it. Okay. Final question. Final question, Jay. We've had a lot of questions. And I'll tell you, if there's something that you're like, gosh, I really wish Kim asked me this question, then I want you to share that with me after this question. Okay.
Okay.
What are you willing to compromise to move California forward? And what principles will you never surrender and compromise?
Wow, that's a deep question. And compromise it's a big word. And the reason I say it's a big word is because as it relates to my Christian faith, there is no compromise. God is number one. Jesus is number one. And so with him, there is no compromise. But the way I look at compromise is compromise could also be a good thing. And I relate that to marriage. I've been married for 13 years. And when I got married, we went to premarital counseling. And one of the things that they told us in premarital counseling, he said, you know what? Sometimes you just have to learn to agree to disagree and you have to learn to compromise. He said, sometimes two things can be true at the same time. He says, when a woman says that they have nothing, or when a man says they have nothing to wear, it means that they have nothing clean to wear. When a woman says they have nothing to wear, it means they have nothing new to wear. Same things are true, just different. So why is that important to me is I've learned that as it relates to my Christian faith, I have to always put Christ first. I also have to always operate with the wisdom that he gives me, but I also can't be blind to recognize that other people are entitled to their own beliefs as well. I have to recognize as the governor of California, I am not the pastor of California. The reason that's so important is because there are people that think differently than me. There are people that serve different gods. And so I myself I can serve God to my fullest conviction, but at the same time, I am not to enforce my convictions on other people. And this is, I'll clear it up with this last statement is this. God does not force us to love him. God does not force us to serve him. God does not force us to follow him. And if he forced us to follow him, if he forced us to serve him, and if he forced us to love him, would it really be authentic love? Would it be true love? And it wouldn't. You see, it's because we do it when we don't have to. That's what makes us true followers of him. And so I take that same philosophy as governor when I go into that governor spot, I'm going to operate with my own value system, with my own structure. But I also have to recognize, I also have to do what's best for the people as Californians. And I'm not going to here to force you to do anything. But what I am here to do is make sure I maintain the balance of Californians. So there are certain things that I do have a firm stance on, and I can back that up, not just from a spiritual thing, from a spiritual lens, but also from a scientific lens or for a common sense lens. So it's going to be my goal just to make sure I measure and balance those issues and problems as they arise. But I will guarantee you this is that I will always make sure that I keep everybody at the forefront of my mind operating from a place of wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan Tillman. Thank you for your bold vision. And thank you for your heart to take our California back. So we would be honored, and you are going to be joining us. We're so excited for the November 8th Take Your Power Back California Republican Governor Face-Off in Carlsbad, California. And everybody can find information on that at takeourcaliforniaback.com. That's takeourcaliforniaback.com. The new flyer will be up soon for that, and all the details and the ability to purchase tickets. But Ryan, before you go, would you tell us the best way to reach you?
Yes. First and foremost, before I tell everybody how to reach me, Kim, I just want to tell you thank you. You are doing literally God's work. Your voice matters, and the viewers of this show, it matters. And I don't ever want anybody to think it doesn't matter. And I think the reason we're in the mess we're in now is because as people, we feel like our voice is often overlooked, our voice is not heard, but you don't know how big the power of one is. I always ask people when I'm in a public setting, I say, hey, everybody put your hand up in the air if you own an iPhone. And typically it's about 99.9% of people raise their hand. And I say one person by the name of Steve Jobs was able to put an Apple product in almost every single one of our hands. It's the power of one. So I just want to thank you for allowing me to have a sounding board to share my vision for California, but also empowering the people to take their state back. Where can you find me? You can find me at tillman26.com. That's my website. You can find me on my Instagram page at Tillman for Governor. And then you could also find me on my business page, which is Breaking Barriers United. And the only reason I throw that out there is not necessarily a business page, but it's a page where I actually educate people and try to help people resolve conflict on a lot of our social issues. And so Breaking Barriers United, Tillman for Governor, and Tillman26.com. That's where you can find me.
You're amazing. Ryan Tillman, an honor to have you here. We're going to have you back again for sure. And we're going to see you in our November 8th Showdown. Are you ready to bring it?
Oh, boom. There it is. I'm ready. I'm ready.
God bless you, my brother. And we'll see you very soon.
God bless you too. Take care.
Guys, what an absolute honor. Ryan Tillman in the house. And again, Ryan Tillman for Governor. And if you look down below, you'll see the scroll. It is tillman26.com, and reach him there. You heard those websites. You can go back and listen to this. If you're listening to this right now, listen, we are not done yet. And if you're just hopping on, you've got an incredible evening ahead of you. So click the subscribe, click the share, and start sharing with everybody that you know. Now, Patriots, here's the deal. Patriots and freedom fighters of our Golden State. Wow. I mean, I'm so excited. I'm moved by Ryan Tillman's message. He just laid out a bold vision to restore safety, faith, and constitutional integrity, California, firing us up to take our power back. You know, I never knew what God was going to do with the Take Your Power Back movement. And I'm just inspired by Ryan's encouragement, reminding me that, yes, my voice matters. Yes, your voice matters. I remember when I was broadcasting over at KCAA radio, liberal station, and I really believed I was making a difference there. And Fred Lovegren was the owner of the show. And I heard he was one of my secret watchers. And he reached out to my producer and said, hey, do you think Kim or somebody on the team would want to do a Recall Gavin Newsom show? And I was not doing anything in the political realm. And I have to tell you, I say often, I'm not into politics. I'm into truth. I've been given t-shirts by the CSPOA that have my quote on it. And I raised my hand. I was like, sign me up for the Christian Jubilee. I'll take it. And I asked God, I was like, why did I jump on that? And I asked God, what is it? What is it? Like, what do you want me to call this show? And it was like a drop from heaven. And this is what he said. Take Your Power Back, California. Recall Gavin Newsom. No joke. That was the beginning of the Take Your Power Back movement. And we've launched probably hundreds of shows and breaking news, and we've been able to make a tremendous difference. And right before the show, I thought to myself, you know, I'm one person. Can I really make a difference? God reminds us all the time that Gideon story. That's it. God says, I will use the weak things of the world to shame the wise. He uses little old us, and the power of all of the little old us is coming together. That's what it's going to take our Golden State back. And we're not done yet. This fight for our state's future is just heating up. Coming up next, we've got two more fearless leaders ready to battle for you, the people. Sharifa Hardie, a businesswoman and media powerhouse, is bringing a grassroots revolution to put Californians first. Then Kyle Langford, a young conservative firebrand, is set to shake Sacramento to its core. We're pressing them with the tough questions. What will you compromise to unite our state? And what will you never surrender or compromise? As First Chronicles 7:14, Second Chronicles 7:14 declares, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray, and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven, forgive their sins. Come on, everybody, and heal our land. This is the moment of healing and rising for all of us. This is our moment to rise up, unite, and reclaim our golden state. So don't go anywhere. Grab your patriotic fire. Stay with us for Sharifa Hardie and Kyle Langford right after this from our Patriots Made and Freedom Stakes Now sponsors who keep freedom alive. And I'm transitioning over with you guys all in the house right now. We're going to pop on over to our banner. So guys, I got to tell you, last night for dinner, I don't know what you had for dinner, but I had the most bomb diggity beef. I did. And I say bomb diggity because it's the bomb diggity. So if you like beef, like real food, if you're on a carnivore diet, or you're just wanting to eat beef that is never, ever hormone or antibiotic, and it's black label beef and never will be mRNA, then you've found it. And I found it too. It's freedomstakesnow.com. That's freedomstakesnow.com. Last night, I grilled ribeyes. I used my organic spices from that same Patriot Made company that you'll hear about in a little bit. And it was the bomb. I mean, I love every bit of that fat. Well seasoned and absolutely delicious. So you want real food, you want real beef. Maybe you don't have a cow that you bought. Maybe you don't have a close by rancher that's, has no hormones in their cattle. So go get yours today. Go to freedomstakesnow.com. That's freedomstakesnow.com. You're going to see the opportunity to receive a video that's going to introduce you to the store. It's going to introduce you to the ranch across America, all vertical integration. And then continue on to that video, because here's what you're going to see. You're going to see the opportunity through our Patriots Made, American Made resource that literally gets you $50 off your beef every single time you shop. So go check it out for yourself. You be the judge, and one of our team of experts will reach out to you. Thank you to our sponsors, Freedom Stakes Now. That is Freedom Stakes Now. I'm tasting freedom in the air. How about you guys? freedomstakesnow.com. All right, we're going to pop on over to our next sponsor. So we touched on our next sponsor, and we touched on our Patriots Made. And our Patriots Made resource is the bomb. We talked about how you can get $50 off of your beef every time you shop, because it's the same company that's vertically integrated that has cattle ranchers throughout the country. Well, this Patriots Made resource gives you, we the people, the ability to bankrupt the corrupt. What? Oh, that's right. Bankrupt the corrupt. And here's what I mean. If you are like me and you saw what they did in the midst of COVID when they shut down all of the mom and pop businesses, yet they kept open the Costco's and the Walmarts selling Procter & Gamble, Colgate and Palmolive, Johnson & Johnson, Unilever, all of the products made by those big box manufacturers, then you're probably someone who's saying, you know what, something's not right there. You're right, it's not. Because let's just take inventory. What's in those products? Parabens, alcohol, sulfates, triclosan, quaternary disinfectants, those are heavy metals. What's the biggest organ of your body? It is your skin. What's on your skin within 26 seconds hits your bloodstream. So let's look at the cycle to hell. You keep them sick using those types of products, and then you feed them into the pharmaceutical industry. That truly is the cycle to hell. We're saying no more, no more. We're taking our power back. We're making the switch to patriotsmade.com. USA Today named them America's best brand. They make over 450 products that are better, safer, less expensive than the stores. 20 years ago, I made the switch. No more back pain, no back surgery with 10% of my L5 disc, daughter's allergies gone, and no more eczema. Guys, we've helped hundreds of thousands of people take their power back, and you too can take your power back. Go check it out for the set yourself. You go be the judge. That's patriotsmade.com. You see the QR code there. patriotsmade.com. It's time for we the people to take our power back and to vote with our dollars. That's patriotsmade.com. All right, guys, we're going to transition on over. What an incredible show that we have had today. And I got to say, I'm super grateful for our sponsors, because it is our sponsors that keeps the Take Your Power Back show alive. So if you're somebody who's saying, you know what, I'm so grateful for these shows that are highlighting our governors, and I want to keep freedom alive, go to takeyourpowerbackshow.com, make a small donation, make a big donation. It's because of you that we're here today. That's takeyourpowerbackshow.com. takeyourpowerbackshow.com. And without further ado, we are going to roll right back into our show today. And what a show it's been. So we've got Sharifa Hardie on the back end. Sharifa, and we've got Ryan Tillman. We just had Ryan Tillman, and we've got Kyle Langford on the back end. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a moment to share a video highlighting Sharifa. Now, I got to tell you this, guys. We booked with Sharifa a few weeks back. We had a powerful conversation, and she, I was really impressed with her and excited to have her on the show today. Now, since we've been on, I have been texting her. I have called her and let the phone ring, and there's no Sharifa. I'm just praying that Sharifa is alive and well. There's no text in. There's no response for Sharifa Hardie, that's running for Congress, who is running for governor. So here's what I'm going to do. In honor of Sharifa, I'm going to share my screen right now, and I'm going to play the video that would have played before she came into the house. That way you do get a little bit of a sense of who she is. And then what we'll do is we'll just transition into Kyle. But before we do that, let's share a little bit about Sharifa.
Tired of being tired? I know I am. And if we're tired of being tired, I know I am. And if we're being honest, most of California is. We work 2-3 jobs and it's still not enough. A 9-to-5 doesn't cut it. So we drive rideshare, we deliver food, we walk dogs, we do everything just to stay broke. We're not thriving, we're surviving, barely. Multiple families in one house, grown adults with degrees packed into back rooms. If we miss one check, one shift, one gig, we don't get help. We get a tent. Something has to be done, and it has to be done now. This isn't mismanagement. It's not a glitch, it's design. A system built to keep us tired, broke, and too afraid to stop moving. And while we stretch every dollar just to survive, politicians are raising millions of dollars, not to help us, but to protect the system that's crushing us. They aren't fixing it because they are it. Different faces, same machine. I don't have a traditional political background, but I have the streets. I have the truth. I have the experience that too many Californians are living right now. And most importantly, I have the courage to say what others won't. But this isn't just about me standing up. It's about you deciding to stop sitting down. Because if we keep electing the same politicians and expecting something different, that's the definition of insanity. If you want real change, you have to fight for it. You have to fund it. You have to vote for it. Donate today, share this message, and tell the world you're ready for something different. Elect Sharifa Hardie for California governor, because survival shouldn't be the best we can hope for.
All right, that is Sharifa Hardie. What a bummer that she is not here right now. So she's known in her communities as a powerhouse, a businesswoman, a mother, an advocate for economic empowerment who's running to give every Californian a voice. So she was here today to step up to the challenge and face off with her powerhouse gubernatorial candidates that are here. But since she is not here, then that leaves us with one of our candidates that has been sitting in the back room, and he has been listening on in. And I'll tell you, he's been a little controversial. He is a candidate, he is Generation Z and on the border of a millennial. He's a voice for California, Kyle Langford, a leader committed to restoring fiscal responsibility, community safety, and the values that make our state great. Kyle Langford is running to give power back to the people and ensure our government serves us. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to dive on into his plan, first starting with his campaign video. So Kyle, I'm going to pull it on up. We're going to share that campaign video, and that way people get a nice taste of who you are. Stand by 1 second. I want to make sure I pull up the right one. I got a couple of them for you. Here we go. And boom.
What's up, everyone? I am Kyle Langford, California's next governor. And what I've seen the past few years is that it's true. Our economy has been skyrocketing, and there has been a lot of innovation that has taken place here. But far too little of it has actually been captured and has gone towards building and creating real value, long-term value. And that is the problem. That's why I have many solutions. I want to make California build again. I want to make California Catholic. And I am going to work with the people that we have here and now, fixing our education system, providing job opportunities for you. And whether it's creating new industries or redirecting current workers into industries where more labor is needed, I will not make excuses and get it done so we can build that long-term value in California.
Kyle Langford. Kyle Langford, welcome to the Take Your Power Back show.
Hi, Kim. Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
Hey, it's great to have you here. Hey, I gotta tell you, I love your blue background. I love your blue tie. So looking good, Kyle.
Yep. Yeah. I'm trying. This is Gavin Newsom's exact fit jacket, tie. I don't know about the shirt, but yeah, I'm trying to get in that mentality, that gubernatorial mentality, you know.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. So let's get this party started. You got to hear the back end with the interview that we had with our last candidate, Ryan. And so we're going to pick up right from there. And so let me ask you, your first question today is, Kyle, the oath of office is a solemn promise to uphold the California and United States constitutions. Yet we've seen Newsom, who you just mentioned, push policies that many arguably defy that. People argue that they might. Let me go back, and I'm messing up this question. Let me just go back and ask it one more time. I want it to be clear. The oath of office is a solemn promise to uphold the California and United States Constitution. Yet we've seen Newsom push policies that many argue defy that oath. So will you restore trust in government? How will you restore trust in government? By honoring this commitment and ensuring the Constitution guides every decision.
Yeah, of course, you use the Constitution and use it as a reference point, and it was created with restraints. Newsom and his mentality, he also has a responsibility to the people of California. So many of the decisions that he has made, of which have been controversial, he's done with the best interest of the people in mind. And so, the Constitution is, I would consider, is definitely should be the guiding principle for, day to day regular situations. But I guess overall, you need the consent of the people, in order to, to act as governor and keep people safe, keep them protected, and keep them productive. So, yeah, so I would say that, that whatever it is, whether you need to work within the bounds of Congress, or you need to, get the consent of the people, or even just start different campaigns. I think that there's a lot that can be done through an influential governor that has the respect of the people, that can be done, that it won't circumvent the Constitution, but that will still create the change that will keep people safe.
Good.
Yeah, and
Can you
that's one of the things that I hope to achieve in California. And we've been lucky to have, governors like Schwarzenegger and Newsom that are at least large public figures. So if they want to get a message out there that will be heard and respected by many, that's one of the things that California has that other states don't. So
Okay, can you actually give me a boots on the ground, one
yeah.
example of how you are going to actually restore the trust in government by honoring the commitment to the Constitution? Boots on the ground example.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that committing to the Constitution actually restores that trust in government. I do not believe that the two are linked. I don't think that most people know what's in the Constitution at all. Most people haven't read it, and most people don't care. Most people care about, do they have jobs? What's the cost of housing, fuel? What are the choices of, of vehicle transportation? Like, are things functioning? Do they feel like progress is being made? Are their communities getting better, not worse? So I wouldn't say that at all. I don't believe that there's a linkage between abiding by the Constitution and restoring that trust in government. Trust in government comes from efficacy. So, and that's one of the things that I've been in a lot of the podcasts and a lot of the governmental think tanks that I've been paying attention to. They've been noticing that the trust in government is coming from a lack of the ability to deliver promises. First and foremost, I would claim to be the high-speed rail project, which is very sad, because I do believe in high-speed rail. I do believe in public transportation, and Japan has it, China has it, Europe has it. Why can't we have it here in California? It's a perfectly legitimate question, and I pin that on incompetency. But it's projects like that fail that reduce the trust in government. So every time the government fails, whether it's fires, infrastructure, cost of living, every time there's a failure there, that is what erodes the trust in government.
Very true. Very true. So, as a young candidate, what personal experiences or adversities have shaped your commitment to run for governor?
Yeah. Well, ultimately, at the end of the day, I just need to be the absolute undeniable best. For example, like Alexander the Great conquered the known world, by the time he was 20. So, many of the founders of our nation, the people that fought for freedom, they were in their 20s as well. So I consider myself to be in my prime right now, So how lucky we will be to have a governor with the energy to actually go out there and make the change happen. No excuses whatsoever. So, it's actually a blessing. This is an advantage that I have of this useful energy, this optimism, and, and the ability to bring fresh ideas to Sacramento, and really root out the corruption on both sides. That's one of the things that makes me unique as well, is that I don't make excuses. I don't play partisan politics. I get things done. So I guess I would say overall, as far as my experience, because you asked about experience, I've been involved in politics my entire life. I've always been cognizant of it. I've been to many events, whether it's city, state, national. I've gone to many conferences. I've met many different political figures, and I stay a lot. I stay up on various news sources. I'm very plugged into what's going on, and and I'm also, I guess you could say that Bianco, Steve Hilton, and I, we're the only three, with a real platform. We're active on X. We get a lot of motion going, and so not only do we read and interpret the news and share it with others, but we also we need to stay up on current events, and we use our different. I mean, ultimately, I would say that the experience is one thing, and then there's, do you have the ability to garner an audience? What can you do in practicality? And then at the end of the day, it's up to the voters to decide.
I got that. I got that. Well, let me interject. So when the going gets tough, the tough get going. I want you to give me a real boots on the ground example, Kyle, of a time you've fallen down and it was tough. You've heard the saying, our pain becomes our purpose, our test, our testimony, our message. What is an example of something that took you down, or you had to rebuild? You're young still, but the reality is you're up against some pretty big things. So give us a real boots on the ground example.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I guess at the first company that I joined, it was a startup, stone company startup with some friends. We were adapting through COVID. A lot of the restrictions, whether that be masking or whether that be vaccination, all these different requirements. Navigating through that, that was very trying. But ultimately, a lot of it is about good communication, procedure, and and I would just say that having really good plan and data, getting it done, and also working really hard. I had to work many 16-hour days during that time. So ultimately, whether you're an employee or a business owner, I think taking that personal responsibility, working those long hard hours to make it work and not make excuses. And I would say that there have been ups and downs in the economy. I mean, COVID was one of them. Another one was the inflation of 2022. California was hit unbelievably hard. The cost of everything went up about approximately 50%. Fuel, it was hitting $6 a gallon. Not fake news, real. I guarantee everyone paid $6 and above for gasoline in 2022, and the cost of all other materials went up, and labor, and so a lot of that cost went, not just from the suppliers, but also back to the consumers. And so that was very difficult. So managing those costs, managing those cost increases during that time, and making sure that that I guess as the construction company that I was actively managing at that time, making sure that, everything that we were staying busy, even though the cost increases were occurring, that's, I guess, like I said, COVID, and then the cost increases of 2022, those were very difficult times for all business owners. So
got it. Greatest learning. Your greatest learning from those moments that you're going to apply as governor.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, like I said, just working the long, hard hours, doing the data, not making excuses, being better. I mean, overall, that's part of my entire ethos is don't make excuses, just be better. Get it done. Come up with a plan, work, communicate with others, make it sure that your team is on the same page and that everybody is, locked into the plan. They see the vision. They know it needs to get done. And when they see you working hard, they will work hard as well.
Very good.
And for a lot of the MAGA people out there, I would just say that, a lot of people respect Donald Trump because he does work hard. He's out there, he's active, he's in the media, he's visible. For a lot of the critics of Gavin Newsom, they criticize him because for up until the fires of January, he was not quite visible. We weren't 100% sure what he was doing. He was not actively communicating as much as he is now. He seems a lot more plugged in, engaged. I think that was his wake-up moment. But it is about being visible, working hard, having the people trust in you, and then that's when you can demand things from people. You can demand people to go above and beyond for you when they feel that you are going above and beyond for them. And, as governor of California, I don't think that anyone would say that I will, I think everyone will know that I will be visible, I will be active, and honestly, I was thinking about this as I was contemplating the title of your show, Take Your Power Back.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about taking your power back. It's also about, I guess when you're a leader, you empower others. And
That's
I
right.
would
Yeah.
say when you take your power back, it's in it's in expecting things from your leaders, not giving up faith in government, like you were saying in the beginning. And that's a two-way street. That's a bilateral relationship. The government needs to be responsive of the wishes of the citizens, and the citizens need to voice their concerns. And a great example of this is, I know I'm going off on a slight tangent, but was that Governor Newsom announced this year, Engage.California, and he tried pushing that. I'm not sure how well a
Hmm.
government website that is just trying to collect feedback goes, but it's just an example of government attempting to reach out to the people, gather information on what's important to them, their constituents, and then responding. So
Very good.
yeah,
Very
and
good,
like I
Kyle.
said, there's a
Thank
lot
you.
of lessons there.
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's talk about COVID for a second, because you brought
Yep.
that up, right? And that's a great
I
topic.
did, yeah.
So if there were to be lockdowns coming from the powers that be, that our state is being
Well,
called
who's the powers that
locked
be?
down.
Let's define the powers that be first. You talking about
Okay,
the
so
World Health
let's say
Organization,
it's
or
another 2020.
okay? Let's
Another
go back to
2020.
March 12th. We going back to March 12th, 2020?
Yeah. So what would
Yep.
you do? What would you do if that were the case today and you were in the position as governor of the state of
Yep.
California?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Ultimately, you need to balance. You need to balance. You need to definitely gather information and data from
Who's
the
you?
experts.
When you say you need to balance, are you talking about?
Yeah, right here. I printed out this org chart, so I knew it would come in handy. So this is an org chart.
Okay, all right, I
Right
love it.
there's Governor Gavin Newsom, and this is everyone that works for him in all of the different subcommittees.
Wow.
So information is received, and then it's up to Governor Newsom to delegate amongst the organization
Mm-hmm.
that is the state of California gubernatorial office of what to do next. So you need to conduct research. I would say in the beginning, you make information readily accessible, and then
Mm-hmm.
allow citizens to, for the most part, make their own decisions. A lot of that is about trusting the people of California to make their own informed decisions when it comes to their own public health. And then I would also take a lot of guidance from the federal government and try to have the United States of America have a united response in this. One of the things that I think an example of a pandemic avoided very effectively was Ebola 2014. Under the Obama administration, there were a few cases of Ebola in New York City, and the federal government dispatched task forces to track down at least one man. Could potentially be three, but I know of one for sure in New York City. They tracked him down and they quarantined him immediately. So it is that kind of rapid response backed by science that prevented an Ebola pandemic. So, learn from the lessons of the past and apply it in the future. And obviously, there are certain things I've heard things such as pandemic playbooks drafted up. So make sure to respect the experts. Read the playbooks. And go through the procedure, and then take advice from the federal government for a coordinated response. So
Okay, so if you were in the same situation, knowing
yep.
what you know now about the vaccine, about COVID,
Yeah.
what
Well, that's a
would
little bit
you
of a
do?
loaded question. It's a
It
little bit
might
of a loaded
be,
question.
but let's just have that conversation, for you
Yeah.
personally, because what you have to say matters, Kyle.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, I guess you could say, so let's say, I mean, it's a very difficult situation. I would say, based off the information that Governor Newsom had on March
Yeah.
12th, 2020, I would say, the question I would have is, were they executing the pandemic playbook properly? I would have, on day one that they had those cases in Washington, I would have got on the phone with the governor of Washington and made sure that they were quarantining that guy, that they were taking it seriously. Any state of which cases are popping up, I need to make sure that they are taking it seriously. So make sure that there's task teams specifically for pandemic preparedness and make sure that they're reaching out. And that anytime that we get any words, so make sure that the hospitals are in communications with each other. Anytime viruses are coming up, don't just let the people go because you detect a case, quarantine them, make sure that we stop these problems at the source. So, I think
Got it.
just in that healthy communication loop, I would say going back to March 12th, I would want to make sure that all the procedure was followed, that the communication was done, and that no one was released knowingly with COVID out into the the populace to infect everyone. I want to make sure that all these procedures are being followed, starting with that phone call to the governor of Washington.
Yes, totally got it. I got it. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for just going, with that question. I know that it might not have felt so good. All right. So we're going to go a little bit
it's
deeper.
an excellent, it's a very pertinent question, because especially in the modern day, if we're going to be honest, we
Yes.
have more capacity for biological weapons today than we did 10 years ago, than we did 20 years
Yes.
ago. So
That's right.
biological weapon preparedness is something that we need to be cognizant of, not ignorant. So
Well
it is
said.
absolutely important.
Yep,
Yeah.
well said. So let me ask you this. Your campaign has drawn attention for bold statements, including a post on X suggesting that transgenderism and homosexuality are sins and that
That's
children
true.
should be brought into the church to address these issues. So can you
It's
clarify
absolutely
how
true.
these personal beliefs would shape your politics as governor and how you would govern a diverse state like California where there's all these different views?
Yeah, well, diversity breeds division. And ultimately, I don't want division in California. I want unity. I want love, family, community. That's what I want. Other people want other things. Maybe they want diversity. Maybe they want division. They want people fighting amongst each other. That's not what I want. And about protecting the children and keeping their minds safe, I believe that the government has a responsibility to not just children but adults as well, but especially children, to keep them, physically, mentally, and spiritually safe. And so the church, to address the post directly, the church is the solution. I mean, in my mind, that's something that I can recommend to the people, not necessarily mandate at this time, but that's something that I can recommend. I can say, look, if you want in my opinion, if you want your kid to grow up spiritually, mentally, physically healthy, this is what you need to do. And that's something that I would recommend. And, and as far as, if we're just going to go into, the, LGBT, I would say that the state of California, I think that they have kind of led the way in the degradation of this standard. I think that a lot of what is truly mental health, has been branded under this liberation banner, and I don't think it's right. I don't think it's loving. I think that ultimately, if you love a person that identifies as trans or identifies as a homosexual, I think that if you really love them, then you should encourage them, to go to church, encourage them to get, mentally well, encourage them to be, I guess what would be considered societally normal, healthy, if you love them, that's what you want. You want them to be normal, like you. I think that a lot of, I look back, I was just watching just yesterday a clip of Governor Newsom from back when everything changed. I believe this clip was from 2006. They were first discussing legalization of homosexuality in San Francisco. And, Governor Newsom he's in a heterosexual relationship. He has a wife, kids, but he promotes, homosexuality. So it's like, isn't there a degree of hypocrisy there? You're recommending something that you would not do yourself. So I would say that, how can you say that it's a loving position to let people, make these life-altering decisions that are often irreversible? How can you say it's loving if you're also being hypocritical at the same time? So, I'm just saying that that's what I want to promote.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe.
Mhm.
And you know what? Ultimately, it's up to the voters to decide. But, I'm coming from the position of love, caring, and not of hypocrisy.
Yep. Good. Very good, Kyle. I love having this conversation with you because, we've all seen you on social media and sometimes you're taken off guard and you've made these statements and we're kind of like, well, let's peel back the layers. What does he mean by that? Right.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at bold, controversial statements that have been made on social media, you've made a few about
I have.
whites, Jews, Nazis.
Absolutely.
So keeping
Yep.
it simple, let's start with your stance on protecting the whites. Somebody
Yep.
might think it's, oh my gosh, he is absolutely racist. I can't believe. So
I am racist. I believe, just like a scientist, I believe in the races as well.
Distinguish that for me, because
I
when
do.
you say I am racist,
Yep.
to somebody out there, they're going to believe you hate me because I'm Black. You hate me because I'm white. You hate me because I'm Asian, right? So are you
It's a fallacy.
saying that? What are you saying?
No, absolutely not. I just believe that there are distinct differences. And here in the state of California, we absolutely believe in the races. We have in our state Senate caucuses for Latinos, caucuses for Asians, caucuses for Blacks.
Very true.
We absolutely believe in race realism in California. And, as a white person, I'm proud, extremely proud to be leading the way for white identity, because many people would say that this nation, as we understand it, the United States of America that wrote the Constitution, declared its independence from Great Britain, was founded by Anglo-Saxons. Many would argue that. And I would say, that's my lineage. I am of that founding stock. My last name is Langford. Verifiably English, goes all the way back to the knights of the 1100s. So, I have that Anglo-Saxon lineage, heritage. That's who I am. That's why I believe I have a right to run for governor. That's why I believe I have a right to lead in the United States of America, because the America that I know and love, that's why I have this pin on, USA, California. I wish for United States of America and California unity. But going back to your question specifically, like when I first made a statement about whites in California specifically, the community that I had top of mind was Redding, would be Northern California. That is a predominantly white, European heritage community. And I believe that they struggle with many things out there: addiction, poverty. I think like a lot of despair, a lot of there's just a lot of issues up there, lack of spirituality. I think that the community of Northern California has extreme high potential, but they've been abandoned by a lot of the, I hate to be partisan. I'll only be partisan when absolutely, pertinent, but by the Democrats of Sacramento. I do believe they have abandoned those whites, those Republicans up in Northern California. And I believe how I can help them is by not only being one of them, as far as, race, similar, but also, giving them religion, purpose, and also just, being happy to see them going out there, revitalizing their economy and putting more investment in that area and help. But another thing as well, to be mindful of how Republicans think, is helping them out in the ways that they want to be helped. So not forcing them, not just dumping low income housing in their communities, because I know many of them don't want that. But it could just be, building the proper infrastructure, making sure that their law enforcement is properly funded, paving the roads when needed. To me, downtown Redding is a great example of a community able to revitalize itself. I think that if you go to the storefronts today, it's much better than it was 5 years ago, better than it was 10 years ago. I think that downtown Redding, if you go visit there right now, is a great example of how to revitalize a community that has been forgotten, but won't be under a Langford administration.
Yeah. Very good, Kyle. I like the connections that you're making. So let's now make those connections with, you have kind of a new view on the Jewish state and a new view on Nazis more recently in the past couple of years. Now, I
Sure.
know that there's a lot of people that probably would like to throw you under the bus right now, especially in the evangelical world. So,
Yeah.
I want this to be a free space where you can, kind of process out loud your viewpoint on that Jewish state and on the Nazis, because there was a lot of things out there in
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, first off, I would say that the word Nazi has been weaponized. It's actually the National Socialist, German Workers' Party. So, that's actually what it was. And then second, I would say the state of Israel, unless you have had your head in the sand, has been it has made headlines on news virtually every single week, since October 7th, particularly, but even before that, going back decades, practically since its creation, it's been in the news. So it's highly relevant. A lot of its influence, I'll admit, is at the federal level, but I have detected, and this is from my personal experience, there is Israeli influence in California politics. And there are people out there that are not who they claim to be, that are agents acting on behalf of a foreign government. And as it being my duty to protect the people of California and keep them safe, it is also my duty to be informed and to inform others about these infiltrations, these security threats. So, obviously, it's international politics, it's national politics, it's not quite exactly state of California, information, but I do believe that it is relevant, and I bring it up when I believe is necessary. As being part of the, as looking out for the best interests of Californians, keeping them informed, and then also being, an American and part of our American body politic. So,
Got it. Good, Kyle. Thank you. Thank you for going down that road and just distinguishing those things. I think that's so important.
yeah.
So let me ask you this, since we're talking about, safety, let's touch on immigration. You've been described as a supporter of the Nick Fuentes with post on
Oh,
X claiming
absolutely.
you
Some might even
propose
say number one.
policies.
Some might even
Hang
say
on.
number one.
You propose policies like deporting male undocumented immigrants and requiring female immigrants to marry Californians to avoid deportation.
Yes.
So listen,
Millions of
are
views.
these claims accurate? And if so, how do you justify these policies under the California U.S. Constitution? But listen, do not share yet. Do not share. This video has got to be seen. It is the funniest thing. Let's play it.
Deportation, I want, I was thinking too, first off, deport all the men, and then for the women, maybe you'll have a 1 year time to marry.
Oh, are you one of these only keep the big booty Latinas here? Shame.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, enough people have told me that I should consider that, to where I'm just saying I would give them a 1 year timeline.
Okay.
I'm we know who you are, we know where you are. If you marry one of our Californian incels, then you can stay. But if you don't, then, well, you're getting sent back across.
Ox and others.
All right. So give me the lowdown. What are your thoughts to that?
Yeah. So there's two issues here. One being the interests of Californian citizens,
Okay.
and inceldom is something that, let's just say what inceldom is. It's men that are potentially socially awkward, that, maybe are keeping their purity, that prefer a traditional relationship and
What are they called
haven't gotten
again?
married yet. What?
What are they called again? Incel?
Yeah, it's a derogatory term. It's meant to degrade this group of men that's been, forgotten and disrespected by society.
Well, I have to say they are warriors. I got to say that my second marriage with my husband, I'm just going to, feed this here. We had a completely pure dating relationship, and I'm telling you, bomb diggity, way to go.
Yeah.
It's the way to go. So just got to tell you that. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's I'm a Catholic, and I believe in purity before marriage and all that. So I believe that that's the way to have it most stable, not just within the sanctity of marriage, but also for the children as well. So I think that's the ideal, and I think that we have a class of men out there that they are keeping themselves pure. They are being disciplined, they don't want to settle for less, but our dating market is extremely hard today. It's very difficult to meet people in real life. We do not have the infrastructure for people to meet today. But to go back to the video clip specifically, not to drift, I'll say that when it comes to the mass deportations, we had a federal mandate, through the election of Donald Trump to proceed on deportations. And California has, a large undocumented workforce here. And so, we have this federal mandate. We cannot just be selfish as Californians. These are a lot of these people. It's true. They are hardworking and they do a lot of productive work, but we have a federal mandate and we are responsible to the rest of the country to fulfill on this deportation mandate. But also going through, as a Catholic, following the guidance of both Pope Francis and Pope Leo, we also have a responsibility to treat these people humanely. And so what shocks people the most? Women and children getting deported. Women and children being harmed in general is shocking and always will be and always should be shocking and unacceptable. So that's why ultimately, as a man, here's how I view it. I'm putting myself in the shoes of a male immigrant who has, entered the country. Let's say they got a visa or they just crossed illegally. They used our California infrastructure to take advantage of the system to be here when they would not be allowed in other states. They're working as a man. When you enter into dangerous situations, when you do things that are risky, high risk, high reward, you understand as a man that consequences will ensue. And so while women might come over here for other reasons, they might be legitimately fleeing for safety, or they might legitimately, have children, or I believe that there's a difference between men and women in the way in which we should address them. And so when it comes to deporting male undocumented immigrants, we have a mandate to do so. And I believe that the men should go first. I think that is the right thing to do. I think that if, we see all the time these pictures of these rapists, of these murderers, sex offenders, thieves, we see them all the time being deported. Hardly anyone bats an eye when a male is deported. But when you see a mother ripped away from her children, that is what grabs the media attention, and rightly so, because, women, they are in a special class. They should be handled with more care than a man should. It's just the law of nature. And so that's why I said that. And I also said the marriage aspect specifically because, I do, for those Californians, those forgotten men of California, I do want to put some pressure on a class of women in our society to go out and to take these men seriously. I do want men to be taken seriously for marriage. I do want happy families in California. This is something that I will pursue, not just with words, but with policy and with, other such actions, advocacy, creating the infrastructure for dating. It's not just this one clip, of pressuring women. It's, also creating an infrastructure for family creation in California. And that is the general ethos and guiding principles of that statement.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for breaking that down. So let's now talk about the sanctuary state and these super sanctuary cities here in California. Yep. When you have taken on the role of governor, what will you do about the current sanctuary state that it is and these sanctuary cities?
Yeah, well, let's be very clear about what that means. A lot of that means it's about sharing data, and it's about the cooperation of law enforcement with immigration enforcement. So, a great example of that is in many sanctuary cities. When they pull someone over, they're doing a typical traffic stop, they may not ask for immigration papers. They may not ask for things such as a real ID, citizen verification. They may not ask for that. So in changing the way in which we approach it, I think that the first thing that we should do is make sure that every city, and so I'm backtracking here. I'm going to say 3-step plan. Step 1 is empowering legal teams such as Bill Asaley. I think Bill Asaley, who is currently heading the Los Angeles County Department of Justice. He is an absolute excellent example of how to follow when it comes to issuing these, when it comes to responding to ICE detainers, and and also responding to ICE orders of removal. Bill Saley and the legal precedent that he is establishing in Los Angeles will be very helpful for other parts of the state. From a legal perspective, as far as it goes, of getting the people that are currently in the system, just the people currently in the system, whether they be in jail or prison or otherwise, and complying them and having them be in compliance with ICE, and with immigration enforcement. So step one is taking the precedent that Bill Saley has set, applying it to other areas in the state. Step two, making sure that law enforcement is at first empowered because many of these departments, they want to enforce the law. They want to ask for proof of citizenship. They want to ask for all these things that would allow them to enforce immigration law. They want that, but they're not currently being empowered. So step one, empower the departments that want to be empowered. And then once we have proven that we can go with that, communities can go from having non-compliant police departments, aka sanctuary cities. Once we've proven that we can make that change safely and sustainably without too much community disruption, then we can apply that. We can potentially, enforce that on other cities that are not so willing to be compliant and cooperate with immigration enforcement. So that's step one. Step two, step 2.5, and then with step three being, once we have verifiably through our our data sources that we have on the back end that we do not share with ICE. Once we can verify that the numbers of undocumented immigrants are dwindling, that we're getting to a point where we are not being reckless with the way in which immigration enforcement is being conducted. And I will say, for one, that I actually will agree with Governor Newsom on this point, that setting the precedent of masked individuals, if it is happening, kidnapping individuals from the street, I will agree with him on that one point, that is not a precedent that we want to set. That is deeply wrong and could lead to many bad actors. At a certain point, you do need to check your humanity and say, when a masked individual goes up to someone who is already feeling vulnerable, maybe let's say it's a woman in this example, let's say there's a 22-year-old girl, she's just walking broad daylight, maybe it's night, a masked individual comes up, claims to be ICE, she doesn't have her ID on her because maybe she's just out on a walk, and then she gets kidnapped, taken in this unmarked vehicle. If what Governor Newsom is saying is true, we are setting this precedent for kidnapping in the state of California, and that's completely unacceptable. So this is something that we need to address, and I think that we need to make sure that Sacramento needs to make sure it's doing the most to respond to the will of the people for justice, for immigration enforcement, so that way we do not have to resort to these drastic measures, which may or may not be legitimate law enforcement. It could be kidnapping, but this is not the precedent we want to set in California. And so we need to make sure we take immigration enforcement very seriously, so that precedent like mass kidnapping into marked vans is not set. I don't think anybody wants that if they actually have a heart, if they can actually understand what that would be like. That's not what we want. We need to take immigration enforcement seriously. We need to do it professionally, so we don't do it borderline criminally.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's transition into human trafficking, Kyle. Yep. So human trafficking is a stain on California, exploiting our ports, borders, and the vulnerable populations.
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
will you, as governor, lead a statewide effort to dismantle trafficking networks, protect our youth, and support survivors with resources and opportunities? And how will you partner with faith communities to bring God's justice to this fight?
Yeah, so let me write this down, so I'm making sure that I'm addressing it. So
Okay.
you said
So
I'll just write down the third of, you said like faith communities.
yeah, and
So
well,
yeah,
how will you lead a statewide effort to dismantle the trafficking networks that are
yeah,
happening here,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That's a
Yep.
pretty big deal. And how will you partner with faith communities to bring God's justice to the fight? Because we've seen a lot of these NGOs, these faith communities like Catholic
Yep.
services and Jewish community services complicit.
Yeah, I
Complicit
mean, I
in
don't want to,
trafficking.
I don't want to speak on things I don't have knowledge of, specifically within these faith communities you mentioned. But what I will say is step one is we need to really do an audit, of our organizations, such as like our any of our public servants that are, let's see, that are anyone dealing with children. So an example would be the Trevor Project. Just today, literally today, Governor Newsom announced that he is affirming he's affirming his partnership with the Trevor Project, which is I am opposed to the category. I'm opposed to the premise of LGBTQ in general. I believe that has been weaponized against our children to take advantage of them, to prey on the vulnerable. I think that it's been a way to identify labeling a child as LGBTQ. I think it's been used as a way in which to identify mentally unwell, mentally unstable, disengaged households, target them, and then get them into a database where they can be, where they can be essentially preyed upon, and whether that is through the check-in, whether that's through the so-called therapists or the public servants that are checking in with them, or whether it's privately. Who knows who they're sharing that data with, of which vulnerables have which households have vulnerable children. But ultimately, I think we need to, at first, step one is analyze and audit our governmental systems that are dealing with vulnerable individuals, and see which of these has a record of people disappearing. What are our success rates? We really need to state our KPIs. What are our key performance indicators? What is success for this program? And we need to be really intentional about it, because if we're not intentional, then, like I said, whether it's the government agency themselves or who has access to the data of the mentally vulnerable, I believe that's where a lot of people go missing. And other people have mentioned the border, absolutely, sealing the border, making sure that people are not being trafficked, and that any way in which people are crossing is that's not occurring. So we need, obviously, very tight border security, make sure that people are not disappearing out of our country.
Yeah.
But domestically, within our own borders, we definitely need to check first our government organizations, and then check private organizations as
Yeah.
well, and just do a deep audit. I would say first and foremost is the doctrine of do not turn a blind eye.
That's
I think
absolutely huge. I want to insert
Yeah.
something real quick that I think is important. One, I want to correct a statement that I made, that the Jewish community services and the Catholic services are complicit in child trafficking. I want to cancel that. And what I wanted to say was they were complicit in propagandizing the illegal immigration. I mean, from we've got
well,
camera footage.
that's a big slip. That's a big slip up, because you
It
made
is
a
it
very
is a
bold
big slip
claim.
up, and I take
You made
100%
a very bold
responsibility of
claim.
that. Yes,
Yeah.
100%. And that's why, I was putting my thought together. And I mean, we led the take our border back movement across the country. So there's a lot of footage, a lot of information that we have. Now, I can't say that they are complicit in trafficking children. I cannot say that. What I can say is they're telling illegal immigrants to, declare asylum, and they're protecting them, putting them in hotels here in San Diego, things
Oh,
that are
absolutely, yeah.
just not good. So
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's two things. It's one, not turning a blind eye. So, and I was going to go. I mean, I think let me say, not turning a blind eye, and then I would say also just potentially conducting some sting operations. So putting some type of law enforcement task force in place,
very good.
conducting sting operations, and whether it's tracking down the websites of which this is being used, using law enforcement data, whatever types of tools need to be used. Don't turn a blind eye. Don't make it acceptable. perform these sting operations and make arrests. And as I was going to say, at the last point is all encompassing is making sure that we are taking care of our most vulnerable in California. We are taking things seriously, and that Sacramento is not being part of the problem. And that they're being part of the solution, and they're really looking out for all because a lot of people say they care about their most vulnerable communities, but in a lot of ways that has been weaponized to actually identify the vulnerable communities, such as LGBTQ. So they've been saying we care about our vulnerable communities, but a lot of what they do is they're tracking and tracing, they're identifying the vulnerable, and so I think it's fine to look out for vulnerable communities. I think we should do that in California. But at the same time, we need to make sure that these labels, that these tracking procedures are not being shared with bad actors, and that this is not a pipeline into human trafficking and into people disappearing and being caught up in bad circles. We need to make sure that we are really protecting our most vulnerable, not just identifying and tracking them.
Very good. Very good. I have 3 final questions for you today. 1, election integrity. 2, water and farming. And then 3, probably one of the most important questions. We're going to hold on to that one. Let's go over to election integrity. So trust in California's elections, as you know, is faltering with concerns about ballot harvesting and outdated voter rolls. Then all of these illegal immigrants that have been added to voter rolls. So as governor, how will you reform the election system to ensure transparency, security, and fairness so that we, the people, know our voices are heard?
Yeah, well, so first off, I would say you say as governor, and I don't always think of everything as governor. I think also in the right here and the right now. What's going on? Are you connected? I think too often, I will get back to your election integrity point directly, but too often we say, as governor, I also want to know, what are you doing right now to solve this? This is an issue that's important to Californians. You want to be in the role. What are you doing right now? And so to segue into that, I would say that Carl DeMaio and his voter ID initiative, I believe the website is voteid.org, although, search through Carl DeMaio's own website to verify that. But supporting Carl DeMaio's voter ID initiative is absolutely the most important thing. He needs help. He just signed, I believe he just got the initiative kicked off, catalyzed not 2 days ago. So this is very fresh. This is important, and he's been pushing for it. And I wish him to be very successful in it. So supporting Carl DeMaio's voter ID initiative, in which I believe he needs between 750,000 to 1 million signatures in order to get it on the ballot. So if you care about election integrity, then supporting Carl DeMaio's voter ID initiative is the most important thing you can do right here, right now.
And I'm going to piggyback off of that. I think one of the most important things I want to add in that we can do is we need to work towards a 1-day voting and paper ballot. I think that's probably one of the most significant things that we can do. It's really common sense, and it can be done. We see it in Shasta. We see it in Huntington Beach, and it'll take something utilizing the charter cities and the charter counties. But if we could do that, wow, we wouldn't have rigged elections. How great would that be?
Yeah, of course. There's many ways to, ensure, accurate voting. So yeah. But like I said, the thing that's actually real, not imaginary, is Carl DeMaio's voter ID initiative. So.
Got that. All right. Let's talk water and farming issues. So California's water policies have pitted farmers against environmental regulations, threatening our agricultural backbone. How will you reform water management to support farmers and ensure food security and really honor God's call to care for the earth?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I think, to point out, so I guess I would say there's 2 things. One, we need to make sure we are managing our water properly. I think the easiest thing is, what are our procedures? We need to make sure that we are not having critical shortages of water through procedural errors. The most important, the most notable water shortage I can think of that was highly consequential was Los Angeles, January of this year, in which the procedure was when the cover of the LA reservoir was being replaced, they decided to drain the entire reservoir down to virtually empty. So this was a this was a procedural error that resulted in the destruction of tens of thousands of homes in the Palisades, Malibu area. So we need to make sure that we are reviewing our water procedures so that way we don't have critical gaps like we had in January. So review the procedure, make sure that there are backups in place, and that we have accountability there. So that's step one.
Well,
That's step
I just
one.
have to tell you, so these little things make big differences, right? Like, look at the impact of a drained reservoir. Well, I just had Ryan's name on the scroll below, and I was like, how did Ryan's name get there? Kyle's name needs to get there. That's a simple mistake, but that cost wasn't a big cost. I was able to correct that cost. The cost of an empty reservoir, that's quite a cost. Those are lives.
Yeah, specifically January, but even in one in which a fire doesn't occur, there still is a cost as well with farmers being forced to ration, with just disruption of daily life. These are things that we don't want. So step two is to build desalination. We have several projects in the state of California. We have plans drafted to build desalination in California. However, we have not properly budgeted the money. And I'm just going to say it, a lot of politicians in Sacramento are not good at bidding. They're not good at construction. They don't know how to get things built. And so oftentimes they overestimate and they blow their budget on a lot of these projects. And part of that, I love the unions, but I will say that often Governor Newsom, his number one donor of the 2022 cycle was the SEIU. And I highly value the labor of which they do, but it is highly believable. And I do believe that it is the government policy right now to use only that union labor, as they're the ones that got him elected. If they want to use up the entire budget, going slow, walking things, non-competitive bids for projects, literally bidding, right? So they see the studies, these labor unions are not stupid, they see the studies that are being conducted. They know what the government office has budgeted for a project, and then they very well may bid in a non-compete bid for the project, and they may drag out the timeline to the max timeline because it's not a competitive process. So making construction in California, more competitive, looking at alternate labor sources, whether that's automation, private sector labor, various other sources, just making them compete. This will drive not only costs down, it'll speed up projects, and we'll get a lot more built in California because it's just sad how they've overpromised, they've underdelivered, they've went over budget, and and like I said, the most notable is the high-speed rail project, but then there's also in the Salton Sea, there's desalination, there's a pipeline all the way out to the Pacific Ocean that has never been built. So there's all these projects in the state of California that we draft, we research, we plan, and it never happens. So we really need to, look at methods to, reduce costs and speed up production and get things actually built.
Excellent. Excellent. Love the system. Love the systematic that you're talking about. So final question today, Kyle. What are you willing to compromise to move California forward? And what principles will you never surrender and never compromise?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of a loaded question because
you like my loaded questions, huh?
Well, it's just a loaded question. You're saying, you're saying compromising, implies backpedaling. It's implying
Well,
you
no,
have a
but
stance
you
and
actually can define that. So let's think about that. What are you willing to compromise to move California forward?
yeah.
Start there.
Well, what I would say is I'm the only politician, and I mean the only one in California that is really actively supporting both sides. So I am Governor Newsom's loudest supporter, loudest, and this is not exaggeration, his loudest supporter from the right. And that just comes because I see his potential and I want to help him. If you've ever watched an interview of his and you see the way in which his mind works, he is a brilliantly talented individual that brings facts, data, and charisma to everything that he does. Now, you may not agree with it. You may think he's going in the wrong direction, but what you cannot say is you cannot say that he cannot articulate himself. You cannot say that he does not have data, and you cannot say that he doesn't know how to execute on a plan. It just might not be what you want, but you can't say he himself is incompetent. So this is one of those things in which I don't have derangement syndrome. I don't have Democrat derangement syndrome. I don't have Newsom derangement syndrome. I don't have any of these partisan divisions. So I compromise on party. That's something that I'm not just will compromise, because I cannot say what I will compromise on, but I will say things that I have compromised on, you might say, which would be party. I will compromise on party to put the people of California first all day. All day. I will do that. Things that I will not compromise on, I will not compromise on my personal belief of being a Catholic, of those values. I won't compromise on that. You're not going to change my personal religious beliefs. That's, I would say, one of the only things that I'm non-compromising on. I guess I could say also, if you want to say other things that are less controversial, I will not compromise on putting the people of California first above other states. I've only got one flag here. I'm not loyal to the people of Oregon or Washington or Nevada or West Virginia or any of that. It's the people of California. And I support Californians of all walks of life, even those that I deeply disagree with. I want to work with them to get things done. So, I will not label people as bad people. I will not, there is not one single individual that I will not work with that is a Californian, to get things done. There is no one that I will just say, you know what, you're a bad person, hands up, I'm not going to talk to you, I'm not going to work with you. I will talk to and work with everyone to get things done. I will lead with compassion, and ultimately, I hope that with that compassion, with that collaboration, with agreeing with me on certain points, that they will agree with me on other points. And on the negotiables, I may agree with them. I may evolve my stances on certain other things as well. Many of my stances are not solid. What's true today might not be true tomorrow. So, there are many things that I will compromise on. I would say evolve my viewpoint on. I would not say compromise, because I intend on winning and executing on my agendas. But there are things that I will say I would be interested in evolving my stances on.
I've got that. Well said. Kyle, I've so enjoyed this conversation. I wasn't sure, what to expect, because I've seen a lot of bits and pieces of these videos, and it was a little challenging to get in touch with you. And it was so nice that we finally connected the other day. I was like, Kyle, I finally got you.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, Kyle, thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today, for bringing your passion, your decisiveness, your vision to the fight for California's future. And we're definitely looking forward to having you back. And I am most definitely going to be reconnecting with you very soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Kim.
Kyle Langford, guys, you can find Kyle Langford at governorlangford.com. That's governorlangford.com. Kyle, excellent job today. Well done.
Yeah,
and how old are you again?
I'm 24.
Very impressive. Keep on going.
Yeah.
Keep on going. Come on. Kyle Langford for governor. That is governorlangford.com. Kyle, have a blessed day, and I'm going to be back in communication with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kim.
All right. Thank you, guys. Kyle Langford. Wow. I mean, we've had two powerhouse interviews today with Kyle Langford, with Ryan Tillman. You got a little taste of Sharifa Hardie. I don't know what happened to her. She was booked and there's no contact. Let's just be praying for her. I'm praying that she reaches back and that she is safe and well, because we did have, an appointment together for you guys to meet her. So we'll definitely have to have her back on, but just be praying for her. And with that being said, we're going to transition over before we close it out. And don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Number 17. Come on. Don't go anywhere. I want to share something with you guys from my heart. There are people that I really, really respect in this fight for truth, this fight for America's future, the fight for families, the spiritual battle we're in, the fight for the children. And one of those people is General Flynn. Absolutely love him. You guys, you've all heard me say, for those of you who listen into my shows, you've heard me say often, we follow the lead of the powerful words of General Flynn. When General Flynn says local action equals national impact, General Flynn means it. And he's all about equipping us on a local level and making sure that we're getting involved. And I'll tell you, I've been in small rooms with General Flynn and other, digital warriors, and he'll look at you in the eyes and he will tell you, in this time, our time is short. Take care of your family and continue to stand in truth. And he tells us to do an excellent job with what we've been given. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So General Flynn, you got to check this out, guys. This is called The Pardon of Innocence. This is General Flynn's new book. This book, what you're going to have access to, is an autographed book by General Flynn with a challenge coin and the Flynn DVD combo. You own a powerful piece of America's history. This exclusive collector's set includes a personally autographed copy by General Michael Flynn of Pardon of Innocence. It is a riveting account of General Michael T. Flynn's battle against political persecution and his ultimate vindication. Also included is a limited edition challenge coin. You got to love that. Symbolizing courage, patriotism, and resilience. This official Flynn combo DVD plus streaming code featuring never before seen footage, interviews, and behind the scenes moments from the fight for Flynn. And you've heard it said, fight like a Flynn. This combo is a tribute to those who stand firm under fire. That's you, California. That's you, America. This combo is a tribute to those who stand firm under fire and must have for every patriot who believes in justice, faith, and the American spirit. This offer is only available at generalflynn.com/REF/Kim. That's generalflynn.com/REF/Kim. And a quote from General Flynn that it's actually a quote from Flynn from the Pardon of Innocence. And here's what he says. He says, with our complacency, we've all but forgotten that our government was designed to be one or for and by the people. If we're too lazy to care, we'll wind up living under tyranny, just as our forefathers warned. A republic, said Benjamin Franklin, if you can keep it. General Michael T. Flynn. Guys, go get his book today. It is a game changer. And with that being said, we're going to wrap up our show today. Thank you so much for supporting our patriots. And I've got a word for you today, freedom-loving patriots. My California warriors, we the people are longing for leaders who honor God, who honor the Constitution, and who are committed to giving power back to we the people. Soon we'll all have the opportunity to hear from the candidates that share our values and choose the one that will represent we the people. And we at the Take Your Power Back show and Take Our California Back are so excited about our November 8th Take Your Power Back California Republican Governor Showdown. That's right. We are having an in-person Carlsbad showdown. You can get the details on that at takeourcaliforniaback.com. That's right. Takeourcaliforniaback.com. For more information, you can find it there. There's going to be details that will be following. And just know this event is going to be a pretty amazing event. You want to hear what the candidates are saying. You want to know what they stand for. It's going to come to a point where we, the people, are going to get behind a candidate that shares our values. So with all of these interviews that I've done, I want you to go back if you haven't seen them, watch them, listen closely. It will impact your decision on who you believe should run for this state. In closing, in today's powerful Take Your Power Back California Governor Face-Off Round 4, we've heard from two warriors, Ryan Tillman, Kyle Langford. We wish to have heard from Sharifa Hardie, and our prayers are with her, who are ready to fight for you. They've laid out their bold visions to restore the California Constitution, honor their oath of office, and return power to the people, not the government. This is not about party lines. This is about unifying every Californian from every corner of our state under the banner, I like to say God's banner, the banner of freedom, faith, and opportunity. As 2 Chronicles 7:14 reminds us, when we humble ourselves, California, when we humble ourselves, America, when we humble ourselves, every country in this world, from every corner of our state, when we humble ourselves under the banner of freedom, faith, and opportunity, when we humble ourselves under God's mighty hand, we pray, we seek God's face, and we turn from our wicked ways, He will hear from heaven, forgive our sin, and heal our land. Let's put God back into his rightful place. Let's stand firm in our constitutional rights and take our California back from the elites who've forgotten it. The power is in your hands now. You've got to vote. You've got to speak up. You've got to get involved locally. Like General Flynn says, local action equals national impact. And hold our leaders accountable. Get involved, guys. It's key. And here's how you can keep this movement alive. Support the Take Your Power Back show. Go to takeyourpowerbackshow.com. Takeyourpowerbackshow.com. Donate to our cause. Become a sponsor. We'd love to have you on board. We want to keep freedom alive. And save the date. Mark your calendars for the Take Your Power Back California Republican Governor Showdown on November 8th, 2025 in Carlsbad, California. Doors open at 5 p.m. with a VIP black tie governor candidate meet. And our good General Flynn is participating. You're going to want to get your tickets for that. And then at 7 p.m., we will begin the showdown, 7 to 10. Tickets are coming soon. Take our CaliforniaBack.com. Put it on your calendars. You want to go back to the site. That site is being built right now with our tickets for you to access and the VIP tickets as well. So tune in for more and don't miss our upcoming live streams. Round 5 is on August 21st at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. Round 6 is my hubby's birthday. It was the only day that works because we're going away. September 18th. It's a great day. 5:00 p.m. That's round 6. And then our round 7 will be the actual showdown. Now, to watch all of the lives, you're going to find us at rumble.com/take your power back show/live, right where you're watching us now. And if you missed round 1, round 2, round 3, you better go back and watch them, guys. They were game changers. And you can find them at my Rumble site. And go to takeyourpowerbackshow.com and click on the Rumble link. That's takeyourpowerbackshow.com and click on that Rumble link. Now, this is your moment, California. Let's together rise up, united with faith in God and fire in our hearts. Together, we will take our golden state back. I'm Kim Yeater, and this is the Take Your Power Back show. Good night. God bless California. And may God continue to give you the wisdom and discernment that you need to make a powerful choice and taking our California back. God bless.
Thank you for joining us for the Take Your Power Back show. As Peak Performance Breakthrough Coach Kim Yeater speaks to other freedom-loving Americans that are making a positive impact in the world by standing in truth amid adversity. Listen in weekly and learn how to take your power back in your freedom, in your personal and professional life, in technology and creativity, and in your faith. Be encouraged, be inspired, be transformed as you step into your power and take action in your leadership and allow your voice to be heard. Together, let's take your power back. To sponsor and support the Take Your Power Back show, go to takeyourpowerbackshow.com. That's takeyourpowerbackshow.com and take your power back.